Hello! Welcome to another night of Get Their Streams. We've been away for a little while.
Yep, had our winter break. Some of us going home for the winter time. Also, just a lot of things going on in December through the Invitational and a bunch of other things that we all personally had to do. So it just made sense for us to take about a month and a half off, I think is where we're sitting at now.
Yeah, around there. But we are back, and we are going to be playing some Ravnica Allegiance Legal Standard.
Oh, I'm really excited. Ravnica Allegiance, Guild of Ravnica was a fantastic set. It looked very well put together overall. Everything looked like it was tested very well with it. But Ravnica Allegiance, in comparison, has just been so incredible as far as it looked from just cards that are very cool. Like cards that pretty much point at me and say, build around me.
So tonight, since we got a bunch of new cards, we got some very creative decks, we're going to be doing a short rundown of everybody's decks, small little interview with them. They can go over the highlights of their deck, what they're trying to do. Hell, if we're going to know just by looking at the deck list for a few of them.
Yeah.
So I got Andrew in here for the first round. He's going to be playing in rounds 1 and 2. Let's get that deck list up for you. And if you want to give us a quick rundown of Naya Fires.
All right, so the first, pretty much the card that I really, really loved from the set that I wanted to play with was Rhythm of the Wild, if it's up on the screen. It has this Fires of Yavimaya-esque feeling. Fires of Yavimaya is an enchantment of the same cost that says creatures you control have haste, and you can sacrifice Fires of Yavimaya to give +1 or +2/+2 to all creatures you control. So non-token creatures you control having Riot is kind of a similar feeling. When you need to be aggressive, you can haste the creatures. When you need to be more defensive, you can grow your creatures. It's a card that's going to have a lot of play too. Also, the incidental of creature spells you control can't be countered because WotC hates blue cards. And I personally hate can't be countered being printed on like every third card recently. But if they're going to do it to me, I'm going to play it. Other than that, new cards that we're playing are Gruul Spellbreaker. This card got a little bit of press right when it came out. 1 green, red, 3/3 Riot. Trample, and as long as it is my turn, I will have Hexproof and Gruul Spellbreaker will have Hexproof. This card pretty much just says, please do not settle the wreckage me. I'm not interested in any of that.
Want to know what I'm really excited about with this card when they spoiled it? We get a good Gruul card that isn't 4 mana.
You're correct. We have a powerful 3-drop. But, I mean, a lot of the Gruul decks are going to be base green anyways, so cards like the triple green card from Dominaria.
Steel Leaf Champion?
Yeah, Steel Leaf Champion is still a powerful card for the Gruul decks to be playing. But I really like Gruul Spellbreaker. Riot stacks in a favorable way. You can give haste and a +1/+1 counter to a creature with double Riot. So it plays well with cards like Rhythm of the Wild. And another really good card in this deck that gets a lot of value off of Rhythm of the Wild is the Growth Chamber Guardian. A lot of people have talked about this card because it is Grizzly Hawk. It is a 2-mana 2/2 with 2 and a green to adapt to. So if it has no counters, you can give it 2 +1/+1 counters. And then whenever 1 or more counters are placed on it, you may search your library for a card named Growth Chamber Guardian, reveal it, and put it in your hand. So it finds itself. It finds the other copies of it. And one of the really powerful things that this deck gets to do is if you play this and there was a Riot trigger from it, if you play this after your Rhythm of the Wild, if you give it the counter, it goes and finds another one. And you're probably on 4 mana when you're doing that, so you play the other one and go find another one.
Yep. I was actually talking with one of my coworkers about this interaction the other day because they weren't sure if a creature entering with counters would trigger it, and it indeed does.
It's very powerful, and one of the reasons that I wanted to move into white with this deck was for cards like Taijik, which is one of the powerful cards that we've seen plenty from the Boros decks in this last season. But the way Mentor interacts very favorably with Growth Chamber Guardian as well, because you can mentor your counter onto the Growth Chamber Guardian and go ahead and find another one. So a really powerful play pattern this deck can have is turn 1 Pelt Collector, turn 2 Chamber Guardian. Pelt Collector is a 2/2 attack for 2. Into turn 3 Taijik, trigger Pelt Collector, bring it up to 3/3, and then attack, and then put a counter on the Guardian. And then on turn 3, you're attacking with 3/3 power creatures.
I really like that these adapt creatures are worded in such a way that whenever one or more counters are put on it,
Yeah, it doesn't care how.
yeah, instead of the old monstrous, like, hey, when it becomes monstrous thing, like, you can use other special things to put counters on it. You don't have to use the adapt, especially since you're only going to be able to use the adapt once on it. A lot of these decks we're going to see, especially yours since you're playing Naya, there's not going to be a way to remove those counters later on. So you're more just either adapting or finding an alternate way to put counters on it.
And then another really powerful thing that Rhythm of the Wild lets me do is, as you see, I'm playing a full playset of Crawl Harpooner, which it has shown up from time to time. It's good out of most green deck sideboards to like snipe down Drakes. But one thing that it lets this deck do is if I have a Rhythm of Wild in play and I play a Harpooner, I get to attack with the +X on it. So if I say I have like this 3 creatures in graveyard, I can play a 2-mana 6/2 haste, which is a pretty powerful.
Yeah. I've played the Undergrowth deck in Arena from time to time, especially if I just have to grind black and green spells in order to get all my get my quests. So a lot of times, like, I see this thing come in and it's like a 10-2 or something, and doesn't have anything to fight, and then it just loses its buff.
It's like if you had a Pelt Collector, it made it bigger. It's the only way you could bring it to like a 7 power creature.
Well, maybe because it's intervening if. And
right.
The Call Harpooner is a trigger itself. So if the Pelt Collector is already a 3, that won't work.
Right, it only works when it's fighting.
Yeah,
that's right.
But the ability to give that thing haste off of its trigger, even if, like, realistically with this deck, you have 2 or 3 creatures in your graveyard, being able to swing in for 5 or 6 is a big deal.
It is a non-zero relevancy. And then other than cards like Aurelia and Tyjek for white, you also get to play Adanto Vanguard, which is just the best 2-drop in the format as far as this format has gone. It gives decks fits. It requires very specific answers to kill. And then you also get to play cards like Conclave Tribunal, which is just your best answer as far as the format goes. I was thinking about playing Incubation Druid in like a more mid-rangey build of the deck, but I ended up moving towards more this slightly more mid-range aggressive deck instead of a mid-range rampish deck. And then in the sideboard, no one knows what the format looks like, so I just choose 5 cards that I think are fine in 3 ofs.
Yep.
The only new one is
cards.
Cinder Vines, and I think that card's going to get a lot of play.
Yeah, and now that we have all the shock lands, we have all the buddy lands, like, you're going to see a lot of these 3-color mana bases, especially with these, like, aggro / mid-range style decks. You're trying to go bigger and faster than other decks, so you don't mind taking that damage early.
You do lose some consistency points because if my hand just has like a bunch of Sacred Foundry effects, then Pelt Collector's hard to cast on one. But other than that, you just gain so much raw power. Being able to be this red-green deck splashing triple Lyra, triple Baffling End, triple Ixalan's Binding out of the sideboard or whatever means that I have more wide answers that the regular green-red decks want to have. But yeah, that's how we got here. I loved last time we were in Ravnica, the standard format, once we got Gatecrash and just you could do whatever you wanted.
Yep.
And I hope that the standard format kind of falls in that same direction.
Alrighty. Well, thank you, Andrew, for jumping in the booth. I'll catch you here a little bit later. Good luck to you in your round. And now we have Nathaniel back in the booth with us, or in the booth with us for the first time tonight.
Greetings.
Alrighty. So, against Andrew, we're going to be having Connor. Let me bring those rounds back up. Connor's going to be on red-green monsters.
Okay.
We're going to be going over that deck list later on, right after round 5. We're going to stagger these. At the start of each round, we're going to go over the deck that you're going to see back-to-back. That way we just have the proper time to let the deck builders kind of talk about their brew, why they made certain choices they did.
Kind of give more of an insight as to why they might have certain choices and possibly give thoughts on how the deck might change in the future. So with that, we're good to start on off.
Okay. So we're going to bring it on down. You can let them know that they can start whenever.
You guys can start whenever.
So, Nathaniel, have you gone to actually look at either of these deck lists? I know you got to look at Andrew's a little bit while we were talking, but I didn't know if you had a chance to look at Connor's at all.
So unfortunately, I didn't have enough time to look at them enough to get everything down to memory. I did get to look at them a little bit, kind of get a general feeling as to what I thought about each of them. And I am curious to see how they work out. The Red-Green Monsters deck, I think that it's a deck that has potential, but there might be a couple choices that might be changed later on. But overall, I think that they both seem like totally fine choices. I think the Naya one might be slightly more lean at this point, though.
Mm-hmm. Now, Connor's deck, since he's only playing 2 colors, is going to have a lot more consistency than Andrew's. Connor shouldn't have to worry about stumbling on mana at all because he's going to have just his green and red sources. Though he is running Steel Leaf Champion, something that Andrew definitely can't run in his 3-color build. So it is possible that that card might not actually come down until turn 3 with the Llanowar Elf or turn 4 if he ends up with a mountain earlier on.
And one thing to note, with Andrew being on the 3-color deck, while the mana bases are really good right now, when your opponent's playing a deck that can pressure your life total, the mana bases aren't completely free. Shocking yourself here and there does add up when you're playing against a deck that can attack you down very quickly.
Now, Connor is playing a few Punisher-esque cards. He has Demanding Dragon, which it's a really good one. Either, was it 5 damage, 5/5?
It's a 5-mana 5/5.
Yeah. That it deals 5 damage to the opponent unless they choose to sacrifice a creature.
Yeah. So at worst, it's a 5-mana 5/5 that makes them sacrifice one of their small guys. At best, it's dealing them 5, killing them, or making them sacrifice their best creature in play. The card has a lot of potential, and it's fairly static for its cost.
And Connor's also playing a couple risk factor. I like this card in the more aggressive decks, but what's your thought in a more mid-range style deck playing this?
I'm sorry, what card were we talking about?
Risk factor.
Risk factor, I personally am not a huge fan of it. I think that it works in burn in a more aggressive deck because it allows you to refuel and you're drawing a bunch of cheap cards, so you can start recasting multiple cards the next turn. But when you're playing a bunch of 4s, 5s, 3s, it's not as impactful on the board, and you can't capitalize on the 4 damage as much if you were playing a hyper-aggressive strategy. But it can be good, nonetheless.
I am a little concerned about Connor's early game and not getting stuck with cards in his hand. He is not running any 2-drops minus Lightning Strike.
And he only has the 4 Llanowar Elves as his 1-drops, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so his early turns, he has to really hope he doesn't get put too far behind in the early game, because if he gets put too far behind, his 3s, 4s, and 5s might not be enough to get him out of it.
This is a matchup where curving out is really going to matter.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to make sure that the players know that we're ready to go?
You guys are good whenever. Okay. They did
All
not
right.
hear me the first time.
That's fine. Okay. So Connor does get to start off with the Llanowar Elf. That's really going to make a big difference
Yes.
in his deck. Andrew, trying to figure out what he wants to do for his 2-drop. He has Dono Vanguard, which he's going to decide on. He also has the new Adapt creature, which he was talking about, and I've forgotten the name already. Growth Chamber Guardian in his hand.
Growth Chamber Guardian, one of the more exciting cards, isn't rare or mythic.
It is a rare.
It isn't at mythic rarity. Just a 2-mana 2/2 that for 3 you can make a 3/3, put a counter on it, but then you get to search your library for another one, which allows you to get redundancy, and it is fairly costed.
Now, when I saw that card originally, I was very underwhelmed by it.
Yeah.
Because it felt like one of those uncommons you get in the set that just goes and searches for more, especially with the extra mana investment that you have on it. But the fact that all these cards are worded when one or more +1/+1 counters are put on it, you have all these ways to put counters on it that isn't adapt.
Yes.
Especially like cheaper repeatable effects. That makes this card much, much better.
Yes. And even the enchantment that we're currently seeing in play on Connor's side as a 2-of allows you to search up more from your library just by casting it.
Now, one cool thing that Andrew is doing here is he's leaving up the mana for Adapt right now. and swinging in against this 3/3 Llanowar elf. So he's going to be able to choose, okay, do I want to actually pump that? Or he decides not to since Connor doesn't block, and then he's able to lava coil it afterwards.
Yes. So now from Connor's side, we're going to see him play a Vine Mirror, and he can choose to either make it a 6/4 with haste or a 7/5 without haste. And he chooses to make it a 7/5 that has hexproof from black, is that correct? Or cannot be blocked by black creatures?
Can't be blocked by black creatures, and it's just hexproof.
Okay, so that's a pretty strong creature on the board right now.
Mm-hmm. Now, it is kind of funny that Andrew is playing the Naya Fires deck, but it's Connor who has a couple copies of the enchantment on the board right now.
Yeah, sometimes it works out like that. Andrew's deck is built more to abuse the card, but right now we are seeing that Connor's able to just get the value off of making his creatures slightly bigger than they would be normally.
Mm-hmm. Now, Andrew is wondering what he wants to do here. He can either spend 3 mana to adapt to his Growth Chamber Guardian.
Mm-hmm.
He could, which he does decide to do. The alternative was to Lava Coil the Llanowar Elf and try to cut Connor off of mana, because it looks like Connor has missed a land drop here.
Yes. But he's choosing to make the more proactive play, and instead of relying on Connor possibly stumbling on mana by using the Lava Coil, he can save that for a later point to kill something that's more impactful, and for now he's making his board better.
Yeah, but Connor luckily did draw a land, and he's got 2 nice 5-drops in his hand, especially with quote-unquote fires on the board.
All right, so he's going to choose to give it +1/+1 and haste until end of turn, and then he's going to swing in there for a little bit of damage.
For those unfamiliar, I'm going to put Rhythm of the Wild up on the screen. Especially since we have new cards today, we're going to be a little bit more proactive in putting these up for those that are unfamiliar with the new cards.
Yes. Ooh, that's a good one, says Connor. All right, so Andrew here going to fight with this Crowl Harpooner and then Lava Coil to finish off the flying creature and pass over to Connor, who is now left with a 1/1 and a 7/5. And now he's going to throw down a Demanding Dragon, which he is going to make a 6/6 with haste. Andrew is going to, it looks like, sacrifice one of his creatures and then take 6 in the air.
Ooh. So Andrew really needs to hope to hit another Crawl Harpooner or a mana source so he can play that Vivian Reed.
Yes. Vivian Reed would be very good right now as a way to finish off that dragon. And it looks, I'm pretty sure he doesn't have it, because if he had the other mana source, he would have already slammed the Vivian here, so we're just going to see him play a Pelt Collector. And one other new card from the set, which is just going to be a 3/3 and make his Pelt Collectors slightly larger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have Gruul Spellbreaker, which is a 3/3 Riot and Trample creature for 3.
Yes.
And as long as it is your turn, it and you have hexproof.
Now, Andrew here is put under the gun. He either has to deal with that dragon or find a way to deal 10 damage to Connor. Now, seeing as Connor does have 2 blockers, killing him seems unlikely, so if he doesn't have a way to kill that dragon, I'm pretty sure this is the lights out for Andrew.
There it is. Andrew is going to go down to 1 so he can finally play his Vivian Reed and get rid of that Demanding Dragon. But he is just dead to any flyer from Connor's side.
Yes, and he has to be careful with his attacks, considering any one of Connor's creatures can be unblockable at this point. I mean, not unblockable, can have haste at this point. But seeing as Connor was unable to find any gas that turn, we might see Andrew turn the corner at 1 life.
Yeah, he's going to have to be a little aggressive here, while at the same time keeping enough guys back so he just doesn't die to the backswing.
He's put in a very weird position, but if he's able to find a couple turns where Connor does not find a flyer, he will be able to develop a board that he's able to just find an alpha attack.
All right. And, yeah, Andrew is going in with everything.
All right, so there are two 4/4s attacking. If he blocks both of the 4/4s, then he takes 3, 7, 10 exactly.
6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All righty. And Andrew wins the first game here. All right. So let's head on over to sideboards. Let's start off with Connor's deck.
Okie dokie. So from Connor's side, what all does he have for this matchup?
All right. So let's bring up Domri. I need a reminder of what Domri does here, because this seems like a very good one for a mid-rangey battle.
It does seem very good for the mid-rangey battle, but does he? What does he cut? Because I suppose he can cut down on the risk factors. Because I just think that even if they're fine in the deck, I don't think they're impactful enough in this matchup.
Mm-hmm.
Cut down any risk factors. Then maybe you want to cut down to some of your higher end or your Vine Mares. Because you don't want to, if you're sideboarding in Domries and other cards that might cost more mana, you don't want to make your curve too thick.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that cutting the risk factors and then either some number of Vine Mares or some number of the Dragons.
Yeah, I would definitely recommend maybe trimming on a few of the 4-drops. Because he is very 4-drop heavy.
Yes.
I don't really want to cut any flyers here because they seem very strong in the matchup.
That is fair.
Crawl Harpooner is the big way that Andrew has to be able to deal with any of these flyers. He does also have Vivian Reeds, which are nice. But outside of that, like especially the Skargan Hellkite, like just being able to swing in immediately makes it very difficult for Andrew.
And it has a not terrible ability locked onto it as well.
Okay. Let's go ahead and bring up Andrew's real quick, if you want to start going over that.
All right. And from Andrew's side, he has quite a few things that could possibly be worth considering in this matchup. So he has some number of removal spells in the form of Baffling Ends and Exelon's Binding that can do some work here. Now, seeing as we know that Connor's curve as far as creatures is a little higher, we might not consider bringing the Baffling Ends, but the Exelon Bindings and the Lyra Dawnbringers are the cards that stand out a lot to me here. It's just being a way to break through in the mid-range matchup, and the Lyras give you a really good way of handling the assorted 5/5 flyers in the air. As for cards, I'm not completely sold on the main board. The Gruul Spellbreaker feels like it might be one of your weaker matchups, and a matchup where you don't care as much about having the hexproof. So I could certainly see cutting those. And as far as other things that might be worthy of beating the axe, you might be able to trim down on some number of your Crawl Harpooners, but as Kirby had already mentioned, I believe that the ability to answer flyers is very important.
Yeah, the fact that Andrew has a total of 6 ways to deal with Connor's 8 flyers.
Yes.
Yeah, or no, 12 flyers. He also has Rekindling Phoenix. Now, Harpooner isn't really an answer for Rekindling Phoenix. Like it can deal with the front half, but then he'll still have to use a removal spell.
Yes.
Like, well, I guess Lava Coil is about it.
Lava Coil is the only way of permanently answering that.
Yeah, and you actually don't need the Harpooner with it.
Well, actually,
you can just straight Lava Coil or Conclave Tribunal.
Yes, so you have 6 ways of handling that. The Crawl Harpooner can help out with the heavier flyers if you have enough creatures in your graveyard, though.
Yeah, and for Demanding Dragon, that just requires 2 creatures. For the other one, the Hellkite, 1 or 2 depending on mode.
Yes.
All right. But yeah, I think that's about it for this one.
Yeah.
So if we head back down to the match, and you want to let them know they can start.
You guys can start back whenever. All right, they are shuffling up right now. So, oof, did you forget to?
No.
Huh.
Okay. So it looks like our round timer is not properly displaying this round. We'll try to fix it for the next round, but we have about 35 minutes left in this first round.
That's weird. But, so, with Andrew being up a game here, Connor is kind of put on the back foot, and he does have this game where he's going to be on the play and allows him to kind of start getting on the board before there's too much pressure from Andrew. Though I do have to wonder, if we get to game 3, who is it going to be in the favor of?
Well, we saw in the first game that having Llanowar Elves really helped Connor get to that late game, and
Yes.
had he not had his Llanowar Elves, there was no way he was keeping up with Andrew for a majority of that game.
Yes, his draw certainly was dependent on that Llanowar Elf. But we're going to see Andrew in a mold of 5, so this game might be a game where he doesn't need the Llanowar Elf.
I think it's going to still be pretty crucial. Like, Connor needs to make sure not to miss a single land drop to be able to get to his glut of 4 and 5 drops.
Yep. Now, Connor's just going to go and snap remove the first creature Andrew plays. Doesn't want anything to start getting too far out of hand. And at this point, he's fine 1-for-1-ing, considering he knows Andrew is stuck on lands. And mulligan to a low amount.
All right. Connor got his 4th land. Had a Ripjaw Raptor that is now tribunaled.
All right, and now we're going to see another Ripjaw Raptor.
And if Andrew is able to get his 4th land, he's got this nice Ixalan's binding for it, but looks like he's going to have to wait a little bit longer there.
Yep. He's just going to throw down his 3-mana 4/4, and I imagine we're going to see him pass the turn here.
Yeah, there's not really a point in attacking.
Vivian Reed going to enter the battlefield. I imagine we're going to see it destroy the Conclave Tribunal. Now Connor has 2 4/5s in play.
Yeah, Connor being able to just curve out his plays makes it very difficult for Andrew to keep up.
Yes. Now, the Vivian Reed has been destroyed. I almost like from Connor's side here, seeing him get a little bit more aggressive, push the fact that Andrew is low on cards and resources, and just try to get through what damage you can.
Okay. So Connor's deciding what to get rid of. He's going to get rid of the Gruul Spellbreaker.
Yep,
And
just get
draw
rid
a
of the
card.
creature. He draws into Carnage Tyrant. He's just going to slam that down.
That seems like a great draw.
Yeah. Andrew really under gun here, and I don't know if there's much he can do from this point.
I believe he just drew a Lyra, so he's hoping to draw another land off of that. He's going to go ahead and grow his Growth Chamber Guardian, search up another one.
And then pass the turn over, seeing as he can't really attack into the 7/6.
Yeah, I'm really liking that card.
Yeah.
Okay. Connor played that Demanding Dragon, and
And
Yeah,
it just kind of ended the game.
yep.
Now, that game wasn't very indicative of how either of these decks works, considering Connor just basically got to do what he wanted after his opponent mulliganed down to 5, but that's kind of just how Magic goes sometimes.
Yeah, as we were mentioning in these mid-range matchups, like being able to curve out properly is going to win you a lot of these games.
Yes.
The second thing is don't run out of gas.
Oh, yes, 100%. If you're just sitting there and you're just playing lands, you're going to start getting just outvalued every turn. Ooh.
All right, so that was a fun 4-minute game.
Yep, hardly took any time at all. Kind of got to see Connor just go, here's my 4-drop, here's my 4-drop, here's my 5-drop that gets my 4-drop back, and then Carnage Tyrant.
There's my 6-drop.
Yes.
Alrighty. Looks like both Andrew and Connor have keepable 7s.
And we're going to see Connor again with the turn 1 Laner Elf, which kind of sets off the fact that he is on the draw.
Okay, and it looks like he's going to put down his Something of the Wild. I keep forgetting the name of that
Rhythm
thing.
of the Wild.
Rhythm of the Wild. I keep just wanting to call it Fires at this point.
So I'm not going to lie, you guys had me thinking that the card was named Fires, even
No,
though I
no,
knew
no,
full
no.
well that wasn't correct.
Yeah, so this card is very reminiscent of Fires of Yavimaya, which was a big player back in Invasion block.
That sounds accurate, but boy, can I not tell you for sure.
I also don't know if it was a big player in just standard or extended or both?
I think it was a player in both, but I'm not for sure on that. Now, Andrew here sniffing out the fact that Connor had nothing to do that turn is going to go and just lava coil the Lane Elf, because if Connor couldn't do anything the previous turn, he's not going to be able to do anything the next turn if he plays a land unless he draws a 4-drop.
Mm-hmm. He's able to play another Rhythm of the Wild. Andrew gets to do a very cool interaction, as we were talking about during his deck tech.
Yes.
Tajik puts a counter on Growth Chamber Guardian, and he's able to just search something up without actually adapting it.
Yeah. And also kind of got to see the problem with Fire sometimes is that while you're doing something, you're not actually putting anything on the board. It's kind of like one of those things that builds into something.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're playing this game where it's all dependent on who has the bigger board state, you can kind of get ran over because you're essentially not casting anything on those turns.
Yeah. So it's good and bad. Like it's going to be giving your future creatures haste when you want it, and kind of offsets it. But at the same time, yeah, that is one turn that you're not playing a creature.
Yeah, it's one of those cards that has a ton of upside, but as a lot of cards do, it has downside along with the upside. And we just kind of get to, I'm not saying the card's bad, I'm just saying that game we get to see kind of the backside of the card.
I don't know. Like that card seems great in the right decks for it.
Yeah, I think it seems fine. I think it even seemed fine in Connor's deck. Sometimes it just doesn't work out for you. So...
Okay, so we're going to have Josh in here in just a moment with Orzhov Control.
All right, I'm going to go grab him, and I guess, do you want to do the deck thing?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Alrighty, so let's get his deck list up real quick. Okay, one moment. Hi, Josh. When you say hey with the microphone off, it doesn't really help.
Oh, hey.
Okay. Give us one moment. We're getting an updated deck list. Okay, there we go. So Josh, we have this nice deck of yours, Orzhov Control.
Yes.
I was seeing a little bit of this earlier on when you were playtesting it. Saw Kaya exile a lot of cards. So why don't you tell us about how you came to this deck list, any inspiration, what you're trying to accomplish with it?
I was playing obviously a dulled down version in current standard, and it seemed pretty. It was pretty good. It grinded out, and it won with Dawn of Hope and Divine Visitation, which the combo felt a little too janky. It was too easy to get rid of those two pieces, and just and that would run out of cards and lose the game. So having the addition of another Planeswalker and Kaya, and there she's not the best coming into the new standard. She has a lot of weird abilities. People haven't quite figured out where she wants to go yet. But she's really good in this list because I wipe boards and put a bunch of creatures in the graveyard. So being able to +1 and gain a bunch of life is nice.
I feel like, especially with the fact of how the storyline is going, with Nicol Bolas gathering all the Eternals, and the fact that when we were in Amonkhet, the Eternal mechanic made these creatures that didn't have converted mana costs, paired with her having a -1 to specifically exile non-land permanents with CMC 1 or less, it makes me feel like maybe we will see the Eternal mechanic come back or something very reminiscent of it. I don't know. It's just, it kind of sticks out. It's very weird to
really
see,
is.
like, out of context. And I'm just wondering if it's, like, kind of hinting towards something that's to come.
Yeah, that would make sense because I've wondered too because they usually don't print stuff for standard to be playable in other formats a lot of times. Like they don't gear them towards that.
Okay, so what is your deck trying to do? Like, what's the game plan here?
Well, the game plan is usually you just grind your opponent out with control spells and like we have Cast Down, we have Moment of Craving for the early game. Mortify, And then for the later game, you have stuff like you have Kaya's Wrath, which is the new Wrath we got, which is pretty nice. And for this color combination, it doesn't strain the mana too much.
Very surprised to see a 4-mana Wrath.
Yeah,
Like,
I'm
it's
glad
very
to get
hard to
back to this.
cast, so it is very specific to Orzhov.
Yeah.
Right.
But and then in the end game, I have Eldest Reborn, Karn, and Kaya as win cons. I also have a one of Ethereal Absolution. It's just kind of a fun of right now, a spot I'm just trying to play with. But it can win by itself. You know, it can make Karn's tokens bigger. I can just exile more creatures with it and start making 1/1s to just finish them with.
It also has a Curse of Death's Hold stapled onto it, so
Which
if
is
your
pretty
opponent
nice.
is playing a tokens build,
Yeah.
they all just die. Like, Celestia Tokens is probably a great matchup for that.
It really is a good one. So, I also like the new split card, which is Consume, I think is the front side. I'm not sure the back side off the top of my head.
Our viewers will have to rotate their heads 90 degrees, unfortunately. We don't have a great way to fix that.
Hey, Consecrate is the
Consecrate,
Consume. The Consecrate side's good, just early game. If I need to get something, it also helps fuel Kaya's ultimate. So if I need to get something in the graveyard and try to get to that, it's also just a cantrip for 2 mana. So white and black usually doesn't have a lot of draw. So that's gonna. Well, I guess black does, but we don't have a lot in standard right this moment.
Yeah, it's essentially cremate for 2,
Yeah.
just when you need it. The fact that it's stapled onto a split card means that it's rarely a dead card.
Consume is really good in the Golgari matchups against Carnage Tyrant and just bigger threats that you can't handle sometimes. Be able to make them sack a Carnage Tyrant and gain 7 life is a pretty big swing. So
Yeah, Crackling Doom was already very good in cons. So you lose the damage to them, but being able to gain life equal to its power, especially the largest power creature that they have, does mean a lot. And yeah, Carnage Tyrant has seen a lot of play in those green-black decks over the last few months, so that'll definitely be good for you.
also the addition of Gala Shrine was nice for black-white to get a shock to be able to help with isolated chapels coming in tapped early. And yeah, once again with stuff like Kaya's Wrath, it just helps with the mana base.
Cool. Alrighty. Well, Josh, thank you for coming in the booth with
You're
us,
welcome.
talking about your deck.
Yep.
Now we have a nice idea of the win con, because that was the biggest question here. So good luck to you in your round. Alrighty. So Josh will be going up against Andrew in just a minute. And I'm very interested to see how Josh's deck plays out. It is very much just hold down the fort, make sure that your opponents can't really do anything. Karn and Kaya are both win cons in themselves if the game goes late. And yeah.
And yeah,
Hello.
I'm back.
You're back.
Wow.
Any thoughts on Josh's deck here
So
before we get started?
I'm curious to see how Kaya does. I was not very impressed by her to begin with, but I would be very excited to see her make some type of impact in any of the games we see tonight. Because I like Kaya from a story perspective, and I really like seeing Ethereal Absolution. Back when Innistrad was insane or legal, one of my favorite cards used to be Curse of Death's Hold. I don't know what's going on in there. If anyone can hear the laughter from the background, there appears to have been a thing happen in the other room.
So.
That didn't work. It'll fit.
Okay, we found out. So one of our players wanted to print out a card they were missing for their deck, and usually these cards are 3.5 inches tall by 2.5 inches wide.
So you're saying magic card sized?
Yeah. Instead, he would like to play with letter-size paper for his deck.
We can make that happen. We just like throw down a stack of printer paper and just like, here's my deck.
So I don't know if I can do it. Can I just like Control Plus on this and just zoom? Okay. So let's transition down to the match. We'll get everything updated.
All right. And just let me know when you want to tell the players to go ahead.
Okay. You can tell them to get started.
You guys can start whenever you're ready.
Oh God, I spelled it wrong, didn't I?
It's about what wrong? Orzhov? Wow. You You sure tried. Okay.
There we go. So, if you're just... Oh. It's not just Orzhov. It's Control. If you're just joining us, we are playing some Ravnica Allegiance Standard tonight. Aha! We figured out the timer. Yes!
Update the match wins, though.
Okay.
That's the last thing, and then we're fantastic.
Yeah, I'm a little rusty here. We've been gone for
Quite a
about
little
6
bit.
weeks.
Yeah,
But we'll get it. We promise.
it's been a crazy winter holiday season. Like, oh man, there was also like the invitational that happened during
Oh,
that
yeah.
time. Let's not talk about that.
I had such a great day one
Your
going
day
undefeated with Dredge and then struggle bussing with
Your day,
Standard.
like both of our invitationals, because I start off, I'm like, yeah, I can't lose a modern. Then I start play standard, and I'm like, oh god, not like this. All right, so we're just kind of seeing Josh start off on turn 2, going ahead in Moment of Craving, the Pelt Collector, gaining 2 life, then just passing back. Andrew has a Crawl Harpooner, and Josh missed his 3rd land drop.
That's not great.
No, it's not
No.
when you're playing a control deck.
Yeah. And Andrew has Gruul Spellbreaker. Now, one of the people in chat mentioned it would be really nice if Josh had a Sell the Wreckage. But funny enough, this is probably the one matchup that it would be the worst in,
Yep.
because Andrew is running Gruul Spellbreakers, in which gives him hexproof on his turn.
Which means that the Set of the Wreckage does not have a legal target, so it can't be cast. Alright, so we see Kaya here. Now, this Kaya is going to exile some cards and gain some life.
I'm very curious if Andrew goes to kill it, or he just completely ignores it.
So, I think he can just kind of
Well, he's going to read it.
ignore it.
And let's bring it up so our audience can also read it, just
So
in case they're very curious.
The problem is that currently Andrew has no 1-drops in play to be exiled by her minus ability, and the uptick, it's okay.
Well, Josh is mainly going to be using her +1 to exile cards from Andrew's graveyard,
Yes.
gain some life, and then ultimate.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that she ultimates by turn 3, as long as Josh is exiling cards from Andrew's graveyard,
Yes.
she's going to be able to do a lot of damage.
And importantly here, she did essentially gain Josh 8 life because she gained 2 life off the uptick, and then Josh had to commit 6 damage to kill her on the following turn.
Now, Josh did miss another land drop, and it looks like he is scooping it up.
Yep.
So, unfortunate, but
Unfortunate,
sometimes
but
that's kind of what happens.
variance is a big part of Magic the Gathering, as it turns out. So,
All right. So, we're going to bring up Josh's list.
okie dokie. So, from Josh's side, I imagine we're going to see some more removal in the sideboard. I see some Playcrafters, some Lyras, and 1 Cleansing Nova that we might be interested in bringing in here.
Yeah, Playcrafters are all right. The big thing is, like, even though they do get rid of a creature on the other side,
Mhm.
1, they get rid of the weakest creature,
Yes.
and 2, its body typically doesn't stick around, especially in this type of build of a deck. Like, Josh isn't really running any other creatures.
Yes. So, with that, maybe not the Playcrafters. I do like the Lyras. I do like the Cleansing Novas.
Mhm.
Is there anything else you like?
Like, maybe the Angel of Grace, just as,
A 5
Nice.
mana 4/4.
yeah, a way to keep him from dying
That's a good one.
for a lethal swing. And also from the graveyard, he gets to gain some life back. What he should take out is a very good question, because there's a lot of stuff that he wants to keep in, especially removal-wise. Profane Procession is probably rather slow in this matchup. I like keeping the other pieces of removal that he has right now in Kaya's Wrath, Contempt, Split Card, Eldest Reborn, Cast Down, Craving, even Binding. Like those all seem perfectly fine for him. Mortify. So Profane,
How about Kaya herself?
I was about to say that. Like, I know that's kind of the
Flagship of this deck.
it is the flagship of this deck, but it might also just be very weak here.
Yeah.
Now, Josh doesn't want to put in a glut of 5 drops and cut a bunch of smaller drops. That is one thing to worry about.
That is a concern of his. Though I think that his best things bring up are 5 drops, and I'm not sure that he has anything better to cut that costs 5 mana. His Eldritch Reborns, I think they seem strong here, if he can get to that point. And his Ethereal Absolution, if he once again gets to turn 6 and cast this at a reasonable life total, I think he can probably just win the game off of it.
Mm-hmm. Alrighty. So let's bring it on over to Andrew's list
All right.
and see what he's going to bring in.
All right. He has a lot of options here.
So many options, you don't even know what to go on first.
I really don't. So I kind of think this might be a matchup that you might want to consider Cindervines, the one you already pulled up. This card is going to punish Josh for kind of casting any of his removal spells are going to deal 1 damage to him. And then if Josh gets down a Ixalan's Binding or the 6-drop enchantment that shrinks all of Andrew's board, he will be able to sacrifice it, destroy it, deal 2 damage to Josh.
Mm-hmm. I'm very curious how the first part does against control on its own. If it's going to be a card that people will frequently bring in because they just want to slowly drain an opponent.
So I think that if you're able to back up with enough pressure against control, this card seems very strong. It's a slightly nerfed Eidolon of the Great Rebel from Modern, and only dealing 1 damage might not be as strong, but I think it still is going to be good enough against the decks that are just kind of dirtling and try and cast non-creature spells to win the game.
Mm-hmm. I'm also thinking that if there's any Dimir control decks, there's nothing they can do about it.
They just kind of look at it and go, yeah, huh?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that Cindervine's at the top of my list. The Ixalan's Bindings, I'm not for sure that there's anything early game you care enough of that you just want to Ixalan's Binding off the board.
Mm-hmm.
Knight of Autumns, I don't think that there are that many enchantments, and at that point I think Cindervines is better, and this does not feel like a Lyra Dawnbringer matchup.
Mm-hmm. Now, I do see taking out the 3 lava coils. They're not really going to do much in this matchup.
Yep.
I like keeping in the tribunals, basically for the same reason you were mentioning bindings, but they're probably better suited for this matchup. You're able to get them out early if you need to get rid of a planeswalker or something.
The fact that you can cast them along with another creature that turn and use that creature to discount it means that you're less likely to have these clunky turns where you try and cast your 4-drop Oblivion Ring effect.
So it seems perfectly fine to just go ahead, pull out the lava coils, and put in the cinder vines, and just let them deal damage over time.
I think that's totally fine.
Yeah, I'm very curious how this card's going to do in action. Looking forward to seeing it.
Yep.
Okay.
All right.
So go ahead, let our players know that they can get started.
You guys are good whenever. All right, so just going to start off on a turn 1 tap Godless Shrine, and Andrew's going to start on a turn 1 tapped Temple Garden.
All right, another tapped Godless Shrine.
Yep. Only now we're going to see a turn 2 play from Andrew here, which you would expect from the more aggressive deck.
Now Josh did bring in Plaguecrafter, and this is the perfect time to use it.
Yep. So you're just going to cast that, eat Andrew's 2-drop, and then Andrew's going to have to do something on turn 3 here.
Yep. 3 mana Sorcery Edict isn't the most exciting thing in the world, but sometimes it does its job.
Yeah. And I think that Andrew here is going to have a more heavier hand right now, considering we didn't see him cast anything on turn 3. And he's going to, it looks like Ixalan's Binding, the 3-drop enchantment from Josh's side.
Yeah, Profane Procession was a card that I think he should have took out for this matchup.
I agree.
But this was one situation that he set himself up really well to use it, since Andrew didn't have anything on the board.
Now, funnily enough, with Cindervines, Josh does have the card that is completely white in his hand is a Mortify, and he's going to be able to destroy that Cindervines if he so does desire.
So some of you may ask, hey, how do you have these cards that aren't out yet? And we proxy those. And of all things that Josh would have a blank card of, A reprinted card is not at the top of that list.
So I'm the person that handles taking care of all of the making sure we have like printed versions of the new cards. I message everyone. I was like, "Hey, what do you guys need?" And Josh sends me this list. Then he gets here and he's like, "Where are my Mortifies?" I'm like, "You didn't tell me to get Mortifies." And he's like, "I did." And then he pulls up the list and it's not there.
So that's on him.
Yeah.
All right. So Andrew plays a Gruul Spellbreaker, which he decides to give haste instead of the counter.
Yep. I think that seems fine.
And Josh can't really do anything because it has hexproof right now.
Yep.
So Mortify is not going to help him. Now, he can...
God, Josh.
Got him. Now, he can go ahead and mortify that Ixalan's binding. There you go.
Okay, so he's going to mortify the Ixalan's binding, take 1 damage off the Cinder Vines. He's going to get back his enchantment. He's going to take 3 damage.
And then Andrew's going to go ahead and pop that Cinder Vines.
Yes. I almost like from Josh's side just killing the Cinder Vines, because by doing that, it gives Andrew the decision of whether or not he wants to pop the Cinder Vines or to leave it in play. And if he pops the Cinder Vines, he's taking 2 more damage than he needs to.
Yeah. All right. Spellbreaker's coming in for another 3.
All right, and we're going to see a Vivian here. That's a really good card to be hitting battlefield right now. It's going to come into play, try to destroy the treasure map. Josh is going to scry in response. Looked like he had a tough decision, but decided to bottom it.
And Josh's side isn't looking too great. He does have a Vraska's Contempt to be able to deal with this Vivian Reed, but he still has to deal with that creature, too.
Now, I really don't like passing. So it looks like he's going to decide to, on upkeep, Vraska's Contempt the Vivian. Sure. Gains 2 life, takes 0 of the Vivian, and now if Andrew doesn't present anything, Josh can still possibly get back in this one. But it looks like we're going to see another Vivian.
And remember, just because it says instant on the card doesn't mean you have to cast on your opponent's turn.
So
if you have something problematic and your opponent is tapped out, just deal with it.
yeah. It's fine as long as you don't let your opponent actually activate it, but it's just kind of weird. And from Andrew's side, we're going to kind of see him snowball. He's going to evolve his 2-drop. He's going to get another one of the 2-drops. Or, okay, he's doing a Vivian first, and that makes total sense.
It's going to get a Pelt Collector. And yeah, Andrew has full reign right now. Josh is empty-handed. And I really like this build that Andrew has. It curves out very well. It definitely gets value over time. His Growth Chamber Guardian has impressed me.
Yes. Growth Chamber Guardian seems very strong. And also the 3-drop that gives itself and you Hexproof seems very strong in certain matchups. And it looks like Josh here is going to concede it to the 4-drop Angel, and now we're going to be going to match 3, which is going to be Joe on red-black aggro versus Josh on his Orzhov control deck. And we're going to get Joe up here to explain his decisions with his red-black deck.
Alrighty. Yeah, I'm very curious how Josh is going to be able to deal with another aggro deck here, especially since he was stumbling some against Andrew's Naya Fires. All right. Now we have Joe in the booth.
Good evening.
How's it going? You are a guest this evening.
I am a guest. I'm not a regular.
Okay. So looks like they forgot to update the card, but this is not Andrew on Naya Fires.
No.
This is instead Joe on red-black aggro. Joe, why don't you tell us a little bit about how you came to this deck?
Favorite card since it was spoiled is Judith. Love Judith. And so I wanted to build a deck around it. I thought about red, but their 1-drops, I'm not really a huge fan. Like, they have the Goblin. He's pretty good. I wanted 12 1-drops, and red couldn't support that. So I went with black-based. I'm trying out the Vicious Conquistador. Yeah. Because the attack trigger, they lose a life even if they have blockers, which helps enable the mechanic of the Rakdos set Spectacle. And with 12 1-drops, it curves nicely into 1-drop, 1-drop, 1-drop into Judith.
Awesome. So something you were telling me earlier about Judith, which is really cool, and the reason why you're running 4 of her is she's never a dead card in multiples. So you're able to just go ahead and play one, and you get to immediately fork bolt because both trigger, even when you have to sack one to the legend roll.
It is really nice. I don't want to run Lava Coil, but that's probably, you just need to for the 4 toughness creatures. I'm trying out Skewer the Critics. I was playtesting. It was kind of wonky, but I just want to try out the new card to see how it works. Rick's Mighty Reveler is kind of awkward because it's not a May. So when you're trying to curve out and you're making decisions, and like when you play it and you only have 1 land in your hand, you don't want to drop the land, but you also don't want to drop any other creature. So you're like trying to figure out what you need to discard.
It seems like a really sweet card. I know that we have the it's the Pyromancer from M19 that you can choose to rummage, pay a red, tap it to rummage.
Okay.
Dismissive Pyromancer, I
And you
believe.
can pay 3, tap, sack it for a creature.
Yeah. So this is kind of competing with the Pyromancer for what it's used for. They're both bears. They both let you rummage. This one's a one-shot. The cool thing about the mandatory rummage is if you don't have a card in your hand, you still get to draw a card.
You do.
And I feel like that will come up from time to time.
Yeah, I didn't get that many reps in to try it out. I feel like that would be great. And I have yet to spectacle it.
Yeah. But yeah, if you do get to spectacle it, you get to do a really cool Reveler impersonation.
Discard your hand, draw 3. During playtesting, I did cast turn 3 Spawn of Mayhem a lot. That's a card that I may run 4 of. Right now, I chose a 3 of split with it and Legion of War Bosses because War Boss can snowball really well. And the Anthem, Judith does Anthem tokens, so that's also kind of nice. There's also the 2-drop that you can pay 1 colorless to sack to shock a creature. Because I want to find synergies with Judith, but I just like the base black for the 12 1-drops. And then the sideboard, I just really wanted to maximize on Theater of Horrors to try that card out.
Okay. Yeah, you don't have too many cards that really compete with Theater of Horrors right now. Something that is a little bit wonky with both Theater and Skewer is the fact that you need to be able to deal damage in order to use them. But at the same time, you're trying to use it to deal damage.
Yeah.
So even though it does work well with the deck, at times it can be a catch-22 where you can't access the cards under it because you need to deal damage,
You'll have to,
in which those cards are going to do.
Sandbag them until you draw like a Shock or a Pyromancer.
The cool thing with Theater, though, is you do get that activated ability to be able to deal damage to an opponent or planeswalker. So, 1, you get to turn it on. 2, you can also apply pressure to planeswalkers that sometimes you can't interact well with, especially if you run into like a board clog.
Yeah, because I chose not to run Bedevil because the curve is so low.
Okay. Anything else about the deck that you wanted to mention? Actually, I was very curious. Drill Bit.
I just wanted to try. The first drop had 4 duresses, but it's new set. You want to try out the new card, so why not? I'm personally not a fan, but because I don't know if I would bring it in against creature decks, I would just bring in the other 2 lava coils. So you'd probably just bring it in against creature decks. One note is instead of the Conquistador, I have thought about running the 1/1 flyer, the Imp, that you can sack to Thoughtseize, just because it has evasion.
Alrighty. Well, Joe, thank you for jumping in the booth with us to go over your deck. Good luck to you in your round.
All right, bring back the Pun Master.
Alrighty. So Nathaniel will be joining us back in the booth in a moment. Yeah, something very interesting with Drill Bit is how it plays this Thoughtseize impression, but not having access to it on turn 1 to kind of figure out your plays for the following turn doesn't quite make it as good as Thoughtseize is.
Yeah, so it's essentially, when you cast it, if you're casting it for its spectral cost, it's a slightly better Thoughtseize. The problem being, though, that one of the strong things about Thoughtseize is turn one, you play Thing, you take care of any early interaction they have, or you kind of get a better idea how you want to play at your turn. Drillbit, like you said, you have to have already committed to the board and gotten damage in for it to be 1 mana.
Like, Joe does have the option of being able to play it on turn 2 if he's able to start with one of his 12 1-drops.
Yes.
Or just shocking the opponent if he wants to. So I could definitely see situations where that's helpful. But there are also times where he might be in the late game, like top deck mode in the late game.
Yes.
And he's just straight paying 3 for a sorcery to Thoughtseize. And even in the limited, that feels kind of bad.
Yes. So, did we already go over both sides of the matchup? How we think about... Well, we've already talked about Orzhov, so we'll just figure that out as we go.
All right. If you want to let them know that they can get started.
You guys are good to go whenever. Now, one good thing is that with the 1-drop in Josh's deck that can be brought back, in Joe's deck that can be brought back, God, they both have J-O in their name. Josh can eat it with Kaya.
Yes.
That is one neat little interaction that Josh does have going for him here.
But we saw Josh struggling against Andrew's deck, and it's a curve and aggressive start, and Joe is just going to be even more aggressive here.
Yeah. So Andrew's deck has more of like a little bit more mid-range to it. Has a Vivian in there. It's kind of has the value plan of playing my 2-drop, get more 2-drops. You know. Joe's on the other hand is pretty straightforward. I'm gonna come at you. I'm gonna try to kill you. And if Josh has a problem with that, this is gonna be a bad matchup for him.
Something I noticed with Josh and Connor's deck so far is I feel like they need a little bit more in the 2 and 3-drop slots to be able to interact with their opponents earlier in the game. Like Josh is running a number of 3-drops, 3 of them being Kaya, that I'm still not completely sold with. The minus will probably matter a lot more in this matchup.
There are 12 1-drops from Joe's side, and so all of them are fairly decent to go ahead and exile.
I feel like it's the anti-Tom Ross card.
Like 95% of the time, yes.
How funny would it be if Tom was the one that kind of like tweaked it in development while he was on the play design team?
He just sitting there like, all right, boys, now let me tell you how specifically to beat me with a Planeswalker.
He probably would have had to give him a heads up a little bit earlier, because I don't think he worked on Allegiance. I think Guilds was the last set that he got to work on play design with.
So when he leaves for the day, they just look in his like his final day, they look on his desk and it's just Kaya's card design. And he's like, you won't do it.
All right. So Joe's already off to a decent start.
He was able to play a 1-drop 2/2, a 2-drop 2/2 that allowed him to turn his kind of dead removal spell in this matchup into another card.
Yeah. And that's really great with this card. Like, you need something good stapled onto a bear to make it playable. And I think this ability is great. I think there's going to be times where you're hellbent that's going to draw that extra card.
Yes.
I'm very curious how often Spectacle is going to come up for it, though.
I think that the Spectacle will not come up a ton, but I do think that it having Spectacle gives it a little bit of an extra reach in the late game, a little bit of a way for you to be like, I'm low on cards, I've dealt you damage, I have this extra mana, bam.
Now we see Joe play Judith, which gets Moment of Cravinged.
Yep.
Pings Josh, and then Joe is able to swing in for 4.
Now, if Josh had not been able to cleanly answer that, he would have been quite a lot of trouble, considering she also pumps the rest of his creatures and is a 3/2 herself.
Rakdos is a color that struggles a little bit with its theme and really sticking out as like a good color pair versus like mono red, which is just this normal aggressive deck that's very consistent. Like black red needed a way to kind of push its power if you need to be a little bit greedier with your mana base.
Yes.
And having something that's like very powerful and pushed like Judith is a really good card to help do that.
Yes. Now, you're going to see an Ixalan's Binding go ahead and take care of one of Joe's 1-drops, and now Joe is just left with a 1-mana 2/2 on the board, and we're going into turn 5.
Almost updated everything. So to answer chat's question and probably answer their follow-up question, we had Connor and Andrew in the first round. Connor on Green Red Monsters, Andrew on Naya Fires. Round 2 was Josh on his Orzhov Control versus Andrew on Naya Fires.
Yep.
We're also going to be seeing Connor for a second match at
The end of the night.
Yep.
He will be playing against Bant Nexus.
Woo!
I look forward to you guys like trying to do commentary over just all right, I'm on to take an extra turn. All right, draw some cards. Extra turn.
It's, do you play Arena? You know what's going on.
There is luckily a point. So like, there's no. The guaranteed kill point is like a little bit later on, but there's a point where you can pretty much say, that my opponent's seeing X cards per turn. They have a Teferi in play. I can't win this game. You can concede from there, and that's an important thing when playing against is knowing when to concede.
Mm-hmm.
And Josh is at 4 life.
Yeah, and he's already used 2 Moment of Cravings and a Cast Down and an Ixalan's Binding, and he is still just in so much trouble.
Yeah, and we even saw Joe he was at one point just had 1-mana 2/2 in play going to turn 5, and he's been able to kind of start slowly building back up a board presence.
Yeah, like, even with a board wipe here, that puts Josh down to 2.
Yeah, well, aren't 3 creatures dying, or?
It's non-token for
Non-token,
Judith.
you are correct.
But this still isn't great for Josh because he's going down to 1, and Joe has 2 creatures on the board.
Yep. So Josh is going to go down to 1 life, and Joe's just going to go and pass over here. Looks like he has nothing really going on in his hand, but Josh is now going to be put to the test of, can he answer what's in play? And if he cannot answer what's in play, then he's going to die to it.
Well, he has the split card to make Joe sacrifice the creature with the greatest power.
Yep. And he'll
then
gain 2 life.
2.
Yes. Greatest power. There we
Yep.
go. All right. What? Okay.
There we go.
Boy.
There we go.
They were having such a hard time.
We're all set.
And now Josh is going to go throw down a treasure map. So Josh can possibly start clawing his way back in here if Joe is unable to find something to pressure his life total this turn. And it looks like Joe only drew into another 1-drop. So Josh is going to have another turn, and he's going to be able to treasure map on his upkeep to try to better his chances of finding something.
Mm-hmm. All right. First scry, no good.
And draw for turn. Is there anything that helps you out here?
Oh, Josh only got 1 scry. Okay. 'Cause
Yeah.
he had to tap out for the map.
And it looks like Josh is just dead here to the 2 1/1s.
All right. That was a lot of removal,
Yeah.
and Joe just kept the pressure on.
Yeah. It is kind of neat to see that Joe's deck, which is just full of a bunch of drippy 1s, 2s, and 3s, was still able to kind of grind through that, all of the removal, and even life gain, because Josh gained, what, 4 life that game? 4, 6 life? He gained 6 life
6
total
life
that game.
in total.
Yes. So it's pretty neat to see that Joe's deck has that much range to it.
Alrighty, so heading over to sideboard. I think we want a similar sideboard to Josh's last match.
I would agree.
Lyra Dawnbringers.
Yep.
Cleansing Nova.
And
Angel of Grace.
I think Playcrafter is better here than it was against Andrew's deck.
I would actually argue that it's worse here because Joe has a bunch of...
Bad creatures, never mind, you're right.
Yeah. Like
Crazy.
all the things that Andrew was playing was like 2, 3, 4 power, whereas Joe is playing a bunch of these creatures on turn 1.
Yeah, Joe has more of a quantity thing over a quality thing.
Mm-hmm.
So
And sometimes just making him sack a creature is just going to make Judith ping something.
that is totally fair. So we like the Angels, we like the Lyras, and we like the Cleansing Novas.
Mm-hmm.
What do we not like here?
So that's
I
That's a
imagine
tough one.
you still don't like the profane.
I still don't like Profane here. That's way too slow.
Okay.
Kayas are a little bit better here, especially since Joe has 1-drops.
Yes.
And also gains some life back. It deals with Cinder Bones.
Now, what do we think about cutting down on Elves Reborns in this matchup, considering the first 2 abilities aren't that good?
Correct. I think for a similar reason we were talking about Plaguecrafter, Eldest Reborn isn't great here. He's just going to sack these really cheap guys.
Yep.
He's going to discard a card, sure, but we know that he has the Rixmati. And like, what is Josh going to reanimate with it?
Yeah, Josh is going to have access to very little unless he has something in his graveyard. But even then, I don't think there's anything that in his deck is all that impactful aside from the Lyra Dawnbringer. And usually your Lyra Dawnbringer is going to be fine.
Mm-hmm.
And if it dies, it might be dying to a lava coil anyways.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I really wish Josh had more early game interaction.
yes.
And he just unfortunately doesn't.
Yeah. So to wrap up, I like cutting Profanes, cutting Elves Reborn, maybe cutting on one Karn to bring in the Lyra Dawnbringer's Cleansing Novas, Angel of Graces.
Hmm.
And I think if he resolves Ethereal Absolution in this game at above 5 life, he probably just wins.
Yeah. Alrighty, so let's head on over to Joe's list. And I know one card he definitely wants to bring in, or at least try.
Okay, he has a lot of options here. Theater of Horrors is certainly up there. So cut out your lava coils.
Yep.
You don't need those. Get them
Gone.
out of here. Do we want the shocks, or do we want to cut down on some of the assorted 1-drops or Legion War bosses?
I actually like cutting Skewer.
Fair.
I like keeping the shock so that you have a consistent way to turn on Spectacle versus Skewer, which Joe and I were talking about this a little bit. Like, it's one of those cards that like it deals damage or helps you deal damage
Yes.
with a requirement to
Yes.
have dealt damage. So Skewer is the big one where, like, if Joe is getting into the late game and just needs to get those last few points, he's paying 3 mana for a sorcery to deal 3 damage. Whereas the shock early on can turn on a lot of his guys. Like being able to just go, shock, bring back Gutter Bones, shock, play things off of Theater.
Now, you really like Theater of Horrors here. There's also something to be brought up about the discard spells in the sideboard. Joe does have access to a total of 7 discard spells essentially in his sideboard.
Yes.
And I do have to wonder if we want to go all in on the Theater of Horrors, considering the opponent most likely has access to Mortify and Ixalan's Binding in his deck.
Yeah, I don't think you bring in the 4 of. I honestly can't think of a situation where you would want to bring in 4 of.
Yeah, I think that
It's very excessive. I'm still not sold on Drill Bit, but I think I like Kite Sail.
So, also one thing that I'd like to note is that initially in this list, Joe, I don't know if he mentioned this in his deck because I wasn't here, but originally he had Dresses in his sideboard, but he decided to put Drill Bits in the Dress slot just solely to see how the card feels.
Yeah. So we might see him try it out this match just to test it out.
One thing good about Drill Bit in this particular matchup is it hits Lyra Dawnbringer.
It does.
Kite Sail Freebooter does not. If that's something he's worried about, I could see him bringing in Drill Bit as a way to hedge solely against the 5 mana 5/5.
Like, he doesn't have a way to deal with it if he's going to be cutting out the lava coils. So, yeah, it's really a question of, can he kill Josh fast enough?
Yeah.
Before those even come down, or be able to, like, play around it. Like, Joe has the option of, like, amassing a board, swinging in, killing one of his own guys that Lyra Dawnbringer blocks to deal lethal if needed.
Yes. So, my hot take here. 2 Theater of Horrors and 3 Drill Bits is what I'm almost leaning towards here.
2 Theater, 3 Drill Bit. Okay.
If we're looking at 5 cards we're cutting, and we don't want to, if there's nothing else we think is worthy of cutting in the main board, I think that's what we want to do. If we want to talk about cutting other cards in the main board, I could see bringing in more cards. But
no, that seems perfectly fine. Being able to just bring in those 1-drops, or keep in those 1-drops to be able to put them down as soon as possible is definitely a better game plan here.
Unfortunately, with the way Joe's deck is built, he doesn't really have the ability to play the super strong mid-range game.
No.
Because he can't, unless he commits his entire sideboard to it, he just doesn't have the power.
Okay. So we kept our guys waiting long enough. Let's go ahead and bring it back down to them. You can let them know that they can get started.
You guys can start whenever. All right. So, gonna see Josh on the start here.
And Josh did decide to bring in the play crafters. I honestly think it's just because he doesn't have much interaction for the early game.
I mean, that's totally reasonable. If you cut down on some other cards that just don't do anything in this matchup and to kind of have earlier interaction, I think that's respectable. Even if it's not the best interaction.
I think he needs something like Baffling End.
Yeah, I think Baffling In would be really strong for this type of matchup, considering it also handles the redundant, the recursive threats like Gutter Bones. And looks like Josh is going to go and take the 2. He's holding the Moment of Craving, but he wants to see if Joe puts down a threat that is stronger than the 1 mana 2/1.
Mm-hmm. And it looks like Joe's just going to play 2 more creatures that can deal 2 damage each.
He's like, I got my creatures that are essentially 2/1s. This is what I'm doing. And Josh can kill the vampire, gain 2 life. And the 2 Gutter Bones are actually pretty strong from Joe's side here.
Mm-hmm. All right, and now Joe can, depending on what he wants to do and what's in his hand, he can just go ahead, swing in, bring back the Gutter Bones, and play it. But I think he's going to be playing that Spawn in his hand.
I think that just swinging for 2, putting in your 4 mana, 3 mana 4/4 flyer.
That can get bigger.
They can get bigger, and just kind of amassing a really strong board is where he wants to be. He's not quite at the point where he's trying to get Gutter Bone value.
Mm-hmm. I do want to bring up Spawn of Mayhem real quick to see its clause for getting counters.
I believe it's if you are 10 or less life.
Yeah, so it does look at you, which is pretty neat because it's like, oh, hey, you're in trouble. I get stronger.
Yeah.
Roar.
It's also, it's less of a, less synergistic with aggressive strategies, which I think is the intention considering the card is already very aggressively costed.
Yes.
Or at least its spectral cost is.
All right. And Joe's going to swing in for 2. And once again, he has the choice of bringing back a Gutter Bones and replaying it if he wishes.
Yeah, so if he has another 1-drop, I wouldn't hate seeing Gutter Bones plus another 1-drop. But instead, we're just kind of see another Spawn here.
Yep, perfectly fine.
Yep. And looks like Josh got nothing. Did we miss? That is an upkeep trigger, correct?
Yeah.
Oof.
Make sure that...
Oh.
Okay,
They're doing
there
it
we
now.
go.
It's a little late, but...
Yeah, you definitely don't want to miss those.
All right, now, Josh, at this point, is just kind of telling Joe he has nothing. Because even if it feels bad, if Josh had a board wipe, he would have had to do it that turn. And we're going to...
man.
Oh, my God.
Yeah!
So
Finally got to do it.
we're going
He
to see
is so excited.
Joe deploy 2 2/2s. One of them is going to allow him to draw 3 cards. And it looks like Josh just cannot beat what is going on in the opponent's side here. We get to see Joe just kind of... did he even aggress him as so much as he just kind of did stuff?
Yeah, Josh just didn't have much removal. Like, he played the Playcrafter, and that was about it.
It felt like he was playing the 1-for-1 game, but didn't really have a way to capitalize on 1-for-1ing with the opponent. But next round, this is going to be my last... this round was my last round in the booth. Now I'm going to be going down against Joe, who is going to be on Red-Black Aggro again. And I suppose am I going to attempt to talk through my deck
Yep.
beforehand?
You get to do that. Let me get that brought up.
Now,
But for anybody that's just joining us, we are playing Ravnica Allegiance Standard tonight. Basically, a first chance to play test with some of these cards before they're legal, before they even show up on Arena
yes.
on this Thursday. I'm looking forward to kind of playing that through the weekend.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I'm actually going to be having my PC put together this weekend, so I'll be able to start playing Arena again as well. And that will be a fantastic time. But for tonight, both the decks I'm considering for the next standard event were already taking being Bant Nexus and Red Black Aggro, so I decided to kind of show off one of the more fun cards of the set, and possibly strong, I do not know yet. But we have Prime Speaker Vanifar, 4 mana 2 for a legendary creature that allows you to sacrifice one of your creatures, search your library for another creature that has converted mana cost to 1 or more, so essentially you get to just chain up through your deck. And what this deck is trying to do is just trying to be a Bant mid-range shell. You're pretty much all creatures. You do have 4 incubations that can be a way of finding creatures, or in a pinch you can exile something, but they get a 3/3, so there's not very many times you want to commit to that. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to curve out you only have 4 1-drops, but you do have your 4 Llanowar Elves, which the deck works really well with considering the amount of 3-drops you have. But then at 2, you have Crawl Harpooner. It's just kind of a toolbox card, allows you to kill one of their flyers. Off of Vanifar, Llanowar Elf into that seems really strong. 3 Druid of the Crowls because more mana ramp is good. And then 3 Merfolk Branch Walkers to finish out your 2-drops, as it's just a good 2-drop. And your 3s is when you start seeing a lot of stuff. You have Militia Buglers, which are really good for value. They can also find Prime Speaker Vanifar, as she is a 2/4. You have Exclusion Mage, which is a 2/2 that bounces one of their guys. You have Elvish Rejuvenator, which can be another ramp spell and allows you to kind of color fix a lot of the times. 4, you have 2 Conclave Cavaliers. And
your Wood Shaper.
And your Wood Shaper. Sorry, it was hiding there. It was like going all by mana cost for a while, and then it stopped, and that got me.
Don't worry, the ooze is in the bottom right corner with the lands.
Yeah, it sure is. All right, let's finish up. 5, Trostani Discordant is great in this type of strategy. Gives you more creatures, pumps up your guys, and just is very synergistic with the deck. Biogenic Ooze, if we want to pull that up, just seems like an interesting creature from the set. Possibly a good way to get a lot of value, and a good way of just a good mana sink in the late game. And you have 1 Lana. Lana Selfless Champion is a way to get tokens and protect your creatures, and a Tishana is a way of drawing cards and being a big girl. Any questions?
Nope.
Okay.
I played Birthing Pod until it was banned, so
I'm excited
this is all,
play a Birthing Pod effect, but boy, she has some issues compared to the Birthing Pod.
like not haste.
Not haste. She can die to Lava Coil. She costs 4 mana.
Yeah. I really like the Bugler here because it grabs so many cards for this deck. It grabs Prime Speaker. It grabs Trostani. It grabs Knight of Autumn.
It grabs a majority of your deck, and that is a fantastic synergy in this deck.
It grabs Wood Shaper to go grab another card.
Yeah.
So you should go like Bugler to Wood Shaper to Bugler.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see if I can kind of outvalue out.
It also grabs the ooze.
Yeah. It grabs everything, my dude.
Yeah. It sometimes grabs Tishana.
It sometimes grabs Tishana.
It does not grab Azor or Conclave Cavalier, but that's fine.
But you're fine with that. Also doesn't grab Crawl Harpooner, but that's fine. So I'm going to go and hand over the mic here to Andrew.
Alrighty.
Have fun in the last few rounds, and hopefully
Good
get
luck
to
to
see
you.
me do something.
I wasn't listening during this part. Is there any reason that Druid of the Cowls aren't Incubation Druid?
No.
Because he's not really attacking with Druid of the Cowl, and Incubation Druid is a Sylvan Caryatid until it has a counter on it, so I just feel like it would have probably been better if we were thinking about it a little bit more.
I thought it was an 0-2.
It's an 0-2.
Yeah, so it can die to shock.
I don't
that's a possible
Yeah, but
concern.
your Llanowar Elves dies to shock too.
Yeah.
I just think it being able to potentially fix your colors specifically for a card like Conclave Cavalier might be relevant.
Oh, yeah, because it does tap for 1 mana of any color that your lands tap
Lands
for.
produce, yep.
Okay. Yeah, that does seem like an improvement in most situations. Now, I can see Druid being a little bit more defensive for him, but I think that it's also possible he just forgot.
Then there's also the part on you can sometimes adapt it, and then it just gives you this huge mana. Like letting you actually cast like cards like Tishana if they're in your hand. But they already went over their discussion of the deck. We can go ahead and move over, update our score.
You want to make sure that they know they can start.
Sure thing.
Rooster, thank you for getting there.
We appreciate you joining us. Y'all can start whenever. So how's the night been so far? How have the games been from up here?
Josh had some difficulty against aggro, as you personally saw, and as Joe personally saw. Yeah, your matchup against Connor was probably the most interactive, but a lot of that came down to how well you guys were curving out.
Yep.
Your first game was probably the most exciting game of the night.
There was a lot of thinking. Both the games that I ended up winning against Connor were both off of the back of a Taijik making exact lethal.
Yep. And we got to see that cool trick with the growth chamber guardian.
Yep. That card having some strong power. The Rakdos aggro deck, it reminds me a lot of like the Black Red Zombies deck during ISD Gate RTR standard. The Gravecrawler Geralt's Messenger deck.
I think it was it Scars in Innistrad standard?
No, it had Blood Crypt.
It did have Blood Crypt.
Yep.
Okay. I really remember Dragon Skull Summit, and there was a vampire deck at the time.
So it was like, yeah,
Though
that's
we might be thinking two different decks
that's the
there.
Zendikar Scars deck.
Yeah.
The vampire deck.
Yeah.
The zombies deck is like Gravecrawler, Geralt's Messenger.
Oh, okay.
Falkenroth
I gotcha.
Aristocrat.
There was also a green-black zombie-style deck with Garruk Relentless to be able to sack the messenger. I remember that one pretty
Trouble
vividly.
56. Thank you for the follow. We appreciate you joining us.
Thank you for joining us.
But it just feels like that. You have all these like cheap black 1-drop aggressive creatures and then something very powerful.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have like your Falkenroth Aristocrat level of power, but Judas is definitely a very powerful card. I think a matchup like this is something very that very much needs to be tested from Nathaniel's side to see how good his deck can be. And this is the matchup specifically where Druid of the Cowl is better than Incubation Druid.
Yes. To answer one of our viewers' questions about the prior match and Joe drawing cards, Joe is able to draw some cards off of Rixmati Reveler from his Spectacle. Basically, if you cast it for the Spectacle cost, meaning you dealt damage to the opponent that turn, or the opponent lost life that turn specifically, you discard your hand and draw 3. And that just happened to be Joe's last card in hand. So it was a pretty nice pay 4, get a bear, draw 3.
Yep. Here we see Merfolk Branchwalker flipped over a Prime Seeker Vanifair, and then it was met with a shock on Joe's following turn, was just an attack for 2 from the Conquistador. Gutterbones joining the fray. Nathaniel here looks like it's going to be a tapped land, and hopefully some action to interact with the board, or at least put something on the board. His hand does look a little land heavy at the moment, though.
All right, there's that Druid of the Cow.
And there is a Cavalier, the Conclave Cavalier in the hand. So assuming Nathaniel's able to get to his next turn pretty healthily, the 4/4 Vigilance is going to be a big deal, especially because the Lava Coil was just used.
Yep.
The Lava Coil does get Nathaniel down to 14, but now a 4/4 creature, he does need another green source, and he might not have it. Okay.
All right, there's
Looks like
Branchwalker.
he's missing it, and
He's got a Rejuvenator.
if he's missing it this turn, that means he's missing it next turn, unless there's a green land that comes off the top here. This Rejuvenator is stuck in blocking a Conquistador, assuming there's no more removal from Joe.
And this is one of those things that can happen with these 3-color decks, just missing one of your colors.
My build of the Naya deck originally had copies of the Double Gruul card, the Trigon Predator that like also has another effect that I don't. Oh, it like can't be blocked except by, or can't be blocked by more than one guy.
Mm-hmm.
I originally was playing that card, and then I just figured there are just going to be too many situations where red, green is going to be too hard.
Yeah. All right. So Joe hit Nathaniel down to 9, and then played his little wizard guy, his Vashino wizard.
So we're going to go ahead and
for
cast
2 more damage.
Commune with Nature here.
Yep.
Literally just strictly better Commune with Nature.
Yep.
Because it has a second side and is easier to cast.
It's just very weird that blue, like, you can look at this as a single green or a single blue. Like, single green makes perfect sense.
Yeah, I mean, that card
Single
exists.
blue, okay. Like, blue technically can do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's card selection, which I guess is how you argue that it's a blue card. But usually when you're digging 5 deep, it's just a rearrange.
Now, Nathaniel does play Night of Autumn. That gains him some life back.
So we're just going to do some trades here. So Nathaniel's going to go down to 6. Conquistador is going to or the is that Conquistador?
Yeah.
Yeah. Conquistador should be biting the dust here, I believe, because it was a 1-2 getting blocked by Merfolk Branchwalker. Yep.
There we go.
2 Gutter Bones facing off against Nathaniel's Branchwalker. And one thing that this format is going to remind a lot of players of, if you played during that RTR era, is the fact that Shocklands are not free. You do not just get to play Shocklands and run away happy about your life.
Mhm.
They are at a cost, and these decks probably playing anywhere from, on average, like 10-ish is what the 3-color decks end up playing.
Mhm.
I think it's like 8 of your primaries and then 2 of your tertiary.
Yeah.
That's going to cause a lot of games to end with you taking just extra damage, and decks like Rakdos Aggro or, as before, the Black Red Zombies deck definitely take advantage of that.
Yeah. Now, Nathaniel may have finally stabilized against Joe. This Militia Bugler really helped out.
Absolutely, and having a backside that is larger than Gutter Bones, and here's the Birthing Pod creature. Prime Speaker Vanifair's made it.
I don't know that
Joe
Joe has an
swamps.
out here.
Yeah, I now that Nathaniel's untapping with this, he's already played his Knight of Autumn, so can you pull his list up? I don't think
Yeah,
there's
he's
any...
going to be able to play Cavalier here. And then search for probably the Biogenic Ooze.
I think Tristani's better because it's going to give him more damage over time along with life. The thing that matters here is if, say, he gets to the Ooze, then if Joe goes strike, he dies.
Yeah. Okay. And it does look like he's going to go ahead and get Tristani.
Yep, and I just think that Tristani is the safer play here, those being 1-1 warriors, or 1-1 soldiers lifelink, not 2-2 knights.
Mm-hmm.
But Tristani gets 3 damage in this turn. Next turn is going to be a much larger swing, and also is going to give him some much-needed life gain in this situation.
Yeah.
What's his 6 that he can get? It's Azor, and I don't know the legendary.
Lena, Selfless Champion. I'll go ahead and bring that up real quick.
Thank you. I'm not familiar with the card. Is it a new card?
It's from
Oh,
M19. It's fine,
Enters
but
battlefield. Create a 1-1 for each non-token you control. Sacrifice it.
it's definitely not what he wants to do here.
Yeah, okay, so it's just another card that lets him like kind of go wide.
Mm-hmm.
But it looks like Nathaniel going to go ahead and pick that game up. Joe flooding out a little bit there, but a deck like Nathaniel's definitely can capitalize on that as long as his mana comes together. And Shalrima, as you said, we are at the cost of getting fantastic mana, but again, there are costs to it. We don't have Farseek, which let us play with less Shocklands last time around. Boy, if we had Farseek, though. But
Yeah, I don't think they're going to be printing that. Like, we got kind of rampant growth, and that was just for the dinosaur deck.
yeah.
So, on to Joe's deck. What do you think he's bringing in?
So I really like Lava Coil against this deck. Pretty much everything the deck is playing.
You don't say.
It's like a 4 toughness creature. Even all the way up to Tristani, your average Vanifair, they're going to be 4 power creatures. So Lava Coil is going to be a very powerful card in that regard. Other than that, I'm honestly not impressed with anything else he has.
No, a lot of this is definitely geared towards control. I think he also went a little heavy-handed for some of these sideboard cards, like 4 drill bits, 4 theater horrors. I can't see situations where you would want to bring in all 4.
You see, the thing is, your drill bit matchups are also your Kite Sail Freebooter matchups as well.
Mhm.
So
you kind of want to decide between one or the other. You have the one that deals the damage to be able to trigger his other stuff, and then the one that can grab more things and permanently get rid of them, but requires damage to be dealt.
I also just feel like, on average, when you're siding in drill bit, it's literally just Thoughtseize. I mean, literally just Duress. Like, they play the same role in those matchups. So I just feel like like Duress would just be a better card because it's more consistent at what it does.
Well, the one situation that Nathaniel and I brought up was Lyra Dawnbringer.
Okay.
That is a situation where drill bit is going to be a lot better against the control deck that brings in Lyra.
Okay, I can see that. So I'd say the 2 Lava Coils, there's a potential for some quantity of Theater of Horrors, but I feel like if you want to play a late game battle against this deck, you're going to be the one that falls behind.
Yeah, he just wants to be as aggressive as possible and get everything out of the way. Nathaniel's deck is just trying to clog up the board as much as possible. And if he's not able to get to one of those cards, like either he's not able to pod to it, or he doesn't get something like Cavalier to gunk up the board, then he's not going to be able to slow Joe down well enough.
Yeah, and Lava Coil just breaks it up, and I feel like they're just better than Legion Warboss.
Alrighty, so let's head over to Nathaniel's deck list.
Okay. So, one thing about Tithe Taker being brought into Standard is that it is not only a card that is powerful against the control strategies, but it's also good against the aggro strategies. And reasoning here is it is 2 creatures. The reason Voice of Resurgence was so powerful in its Standard format was that it was incredibly powerful against control, and it was fine against aggro. Because it was a 2/2 that turned into another creature that got to block. And that letting you get towards your late game. In all honesty, if there's room, like, I think this card might be better than Merfolk Branchwalker in his main deck.
Man, that's... I don't know. I kind of like the Branchwalker better because, one, it helps hit the land drops, because Nathaniel really needs to be. 2, it can go up to a 3/2, which blocks very well against any of Joe's 1-power creatures that Tithe Taker doesn't so much. 3, I wouldn't overvalue the Afterlife. Like, I agree it is very good, but Voice Resurgence not only was a 2/2 body on the front, its token was rarely a 1/1.
Yeah, that's fair. It's not like the direct comparison, but it's like why it's good in this aggro matchup.
Yeah.
But I do like the Tithe Takers here, and probably the Knights of Autumn. They're not like fantastic, but it's just kind of something that your deck wants to be doing, I suppose.
I think I would probably skip on the Tithe Taker. Actually, I could see cutting Harpooner to bring one in if you wanted to. I agree with bringing in 2 Knight of Autumn. I could also see bringing in Deputy of Detention. That one seems really good.
That's something I was about to go towards, is like, do you think Deputy of Detention might be a good card here? It definitely is kind of a weird card here, but it blocks very favorably against the majority of his creatures, and it also gets to be a removal spell for as long as it sticks in play.
I'd probably take out the Tishana.
Yep.
I don't think there's going to be a time where he really wants to hit it. I'm a little unsure about Azor.
I'm on the statement that all the cards above 5 should go.
All above 5?
Yeah, so Lena, Azor, Tishana, and even Sumala. Like, that whole stack of 4, I think those can leave.
I think you can keep in Lena, since you get a token for each creature that Joe has. So if Joe has started to accumulate things on the board, it's a very good one to just put out and have some blockers.
I could see it. Is there any argument for maybe cutting cards like Incubation?
I think I'd prefer to keep that in so that you have selection of the creatures.
Okay.
Because as the game goes on, certain creatures are going to be more valuable to Nathaniel than others. Like, there's going to be situations where there's 2 creatures on board that Nathaniel has to deal with, and being able to grab something like an Exclusion Mage to bounce one, block the other, is going to be more valuable than like an Elvish Rejuvenator.
That's fair. All right.
So I could see Azor, I could see Tishana, I could see Sumala, Woodshaper. How many 4s does he have?
He has the double Cavalier and the 4 Vanifair.
Yeah, I'm unsure on the Shaper, but I think I would keep Ooze. I think I would keep Tristanis.
Okay.
Because they're very good at gunking up the board.
All right, so let's go ahead and send it down and see how we did. All right, y'all are good to start. Joe being on the play here definitely is going to make quite a difference in how this game should go.
But Nathaniel has a lot of 3 toughness creatures, so
Why is
it makes it kind of difficult for Joe to get through.
No 1-drop for Joe. That is a dramatic statement here. Nathaniel here just going in and putting a Temple Garden in tapped and no 2. Did Joe keep an interaction heavy hand?
Yeah, that doesn't seem right. Maybe he over-sideboarded.
I mean, that is a possibility. And no, like, Lightning Strike here. That means that the interaction's like Lava Coil type effects. So Nathaniel here with an uncontested Druid of the Cowl at the moment. Dragon Skull Summit going to go ahead and come in untapped. And here we're going to see a Skewer the Critics. No, that's the lightning.
No, this
The
is
theater.
This is theater.
So this card reads at the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top card of your library. And then you may play the cards if you have...
If an opponent has lost life this
Yeah.
turn, you can play the exiled cards. They don't go away at end of turn. It's not like an Outpost Siege where you only have that one turn to do so. They just remain exiled and able for you to play.
and then it has the added ability of 4 mana, you can deal 1 damage to a creature or a player or planeswalker.
Yeah. And which, in a control matchup, can really matter. Like, your opponent has something like a Teferi on the board. Like, being able to just get a little bit of damage on it is very helpful.
We're going to see that Incubation going to go ahead and pick a Knight of Autumn, which is going to kill the Theater of Horrors. So Joe's hand going to fall apart just a little bit there. I do see the Demon, though, in his hand, the 4 mana, 4/4 flyer.
The Spawn of Mayhem.
There it is, I believe, coming down right now.
Now, last match, Joe got to play 2 of them for the discounted rate, but not so fortunate this time.
The most innocuous mythic. This is one of those cards that is a mythic because Wizards believes it is tournament playable.
Yeah, it is a very powerful card.
Here's a Cavalier from Nathaniel, meaning that he's not going to be able to deal any damage over towards Joe unless he wants to sacrifice a worthless creature. So 1 damage going to go both ways. Nathaniel and Joe falling down to 19.
I've been very happy with the Demon selection from these past 2 sets, especially for Cube.
Especially for the 2 people in the world that want to play Liliana's Contract in Standard.
I really want to put together a battle box or cubelet that has that card and a variety of demons. There are a ton of cheap demons.
Yeah.
You had stuff from Avacyn Restored, like there's a 3 mana 3/2. When it dies, each opponent loses 3 life. Amonkhet, we had a bunch of the small demons that enter with -1/-1 counters, like demon crocodiles or whatever. And then you just have ones that make tokens. All right, Joe actually has a few things on the board now.
Yep. It seems like we missed a point of damage. It was Judith playing it post-combat into a tapped-out board. Nathaniel here for 5 mana looks like he's just going to go ahead and lay a Tristani down, so we're going to be racing, it looks like.
All right. And this 4/4 has Vigilance, which really matters.
This 5/5 has Vigilance.
Well, now it's a 5/5. Base 4/4.
The Spawn of Mayhem, once Nathaniel is below 10, it starts
Once
getting
Joe is below 10.
Okay.
Or 10 or below.
It starts
It
getting
reminds me a little of Zendikar. Because
Yeah,
they
it
had
has that,
but that was opponent.
Vampire Lacerator kind of feeling.
Yeah, there was a variety of vampires that got extra abilities as long as the opponent was at 10 or less.
I kind of liked just that feeling of it. It felt very vampire-esque, especially like from a D&D vein. It was like, if I'm bloodied, the vampire is stronger because he's hungry.
Well, they brought that back a little bit with Gatecrash with Blood Baron.
Yes.
Now, you also had to be at 30 life.
Which
but-
wasn't hard. I don't know how much Blood Baron of Viscopa you played, but whew, that card was a house.
Oh, I'm sorry. 2 of the colors with the most powerful removal can't touch it.
It's
All
literally
right.
just the mirror breaker, the
So
card.
Nathaniel taking 5 in the air.
Yep,
from
down
the
to 7.
spawn. And what follow-up does Joe have? Because he might be taking a lot of damage on the backswing. And Nathaniel will be gaining some life back off of these soldiers.
Nathaniel just playing the green-white, like, mid-range plan here. Here we see the what's it called?
Rixmati Reveler.
Thank you. Reveler cycling a Gutter Bones, one of its value plays that it can do, and another Spawn following it up.
Yep. Seems very strong right now.
Notably, Nathaniel does not have access to blue mana.
Maybe that's what has kind of given Joe a chance to catch up this game. Because Joe was like doing nothing on the board and just suddenly started getting in on a bunch of damage. It also shows how good Spawn is. Being able to just swing in for 4 in the air turn after turn while it's already pinging you.
Yep. I mean, Nathaniel's currently on the board state where next turn double spawn's going to kill him, so he has to gain life. It looks like we might have picked up a blue source in a breeding pool.
Yeah.
And spawn's also going to deal 2 damage to Nathaniel on the coming turn.
Yep. So Nathaniel's only going to be able to gain 4 life here. Additionally, depending on how Joe blocks, Nathaniel might also take some damage back off of Judith.
Mm-hmm. Looks like Militia Bugler are going to go ahead and come into play, make our decision a little more clear as to exactly what we want to do. I see multiple Tithe Takers in the pile. I believe that card only checks 4, so Nathaniel has picked up a card, and he's just going to concede.
Okay. Whoops.
I screwed up. I lose.
Now, I understand the Rejuvenator looks at the top 5,
Yep.
whereas Bugler only looks at the top 4, and both of those are in the same set.
Mm-hmm.
So
Bugler was on my radar when I was building the deck. It was definitely one of the avenues I was looking at going down, was like this Militia Bugler and make all the cards better with Rhythm of the Wild. And it just turned out like all the 3-power creatures are the creatures I want to be playing.
yeah, like if you're in Gruul, you want to be playing Spellbreaker and a bunch of these creatures that have a great power toughness to mana cost ratio.
I was impressed that it was this immediately after sleeving the deck up that I got to point at my Spellbreaker and say it as hexproof.
Mm-hmm. We were even joking while that match was going on. Well, you got this Mortify that you can at least get rid of the Cindervines or the Conclave Tribunal, I think, was on
Ixalan's Binding.
Or
I
okay,
had a
yeah, the
binding on
Ixalan's
his
binding
Profane
it.
Possession.
And he goes right for the Spellbreaker. It's like, nope.
Can't do that.
Denied.
No, that card is very powerful, and I anticipate it to show up quite a lot. Here we're going to go ahead and see our game 3. Nathaniel on the play. Tithe Taker in the opening hand. Looks like a hefty amount of land, so he won't be missing any plays, but Tithe Taker might be his only spell, other than it looks like maybe a Vanifair in the back.
Does he have white mana? I couldn't tell if there was a Glacial
there's
Fortress.
a Glacial Fortress
Okay,
in the mix.
cool.
So Joe actually has a 1-drop.
All
That's
right.
important.
Though he is on the draw this time.
Mm-hmm. Looks like Nathaniel picked up a 6th land, I believe, for the turn. Sunpetal Grove going to follow into a Tithe Taker. 2 mana, 2/1, Afterlife 1, and it taxes Joe's effects when it is on Nathaniel's turn.
Did Joe keep a 1 land? Okay,
Nope,
cool.
I see.
So he is debating how he wants to deal with this. I think Shock is probably the correct choice here. He's going to decide to Lava Coil so it can't Afterlife. The
I can
Lava Coil
understand
is
that.
very important in this matchup.
Absolutely.
So I think shocking Nathaniel only having a 1/1 Spirit and swinging in with a 2/2 may have been the better play.
Nathaniel picked up a 2nd copy of Vanifair.
All right. So Joe's going to swing in again.
I can understand.
Assume.
If Joe doesn't have access to another 1-drop, the Lava Coil is also much more mana efficient. Here we just have a Theater of Horrors following up. So just this Diagraph Ghoul going ahead and taking the chip shots in. Again, very reminiscent to me of Black Red Zombie Standard, because definitely played that card.
Mm-hmm.
And here is the Prime Speaker Vanifair, the Birthing Pod creature. Let's see if we get any actual value out of it. Gutterbone's going to get flipped to the Theater of Horrors. But yeah, if there was a Lava Coil on this situation, it would be much better from Joe's side, but it looks like he has one anyways. So if there were multiple in the hand at the time, it makes more sense.
Mm-hmm.
Don't play any card from your hand. You want to get this Gutterbones in play.
Yeah.
There he is.
Now, the good thing is he can just play it whenever.
Yeah. Tap that man.
You got the mic.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Joe going to go ahead and shock because his life total is not under much duress in this matchup.
Yeah, I don't think Nathaniel's running those.
1 mana. Looks like it's going to be an incubation. See if we get anything better. There's another Prime Speaker Vanifair. Another incubation.
Because you need 3, right?
Yeah, man, if they keep Lava Coiling him. It looks like he's got the Ooze Man. Why isn't that card legendary? Why can't you have the Ooze Commander?
So
Mimeoplasm?
it reminds me very much of the Horse Lord,
Yeah.
where since there's not enough support for that creature type yet, they just want to give you a powerful Lord. And maybe sometime in the future,
Yeah, we'll get the legend.
like I'm curious if we're going to get a Changeling Lord at some point in the future. The closest we have right now is Corona.
So, like, a Changeling Lord is just kind of a weird thing, and I know we're getting away from the game a little bit, but it's pretty straightforward on the board at the moment. But, like, a Changeling Lord is an interesting thing, but it kind of becomes a tribal lord for all tribes, in a way.
So it has to be, like, less powerful than specific tribe lords,
Yeah.
but give you the option of, like, maybe one that could just, hey, you can turn one of your creatures into
Into
a
a
changeling till end of turn or
That'd
something.
be kind of interesting. You could, like, kind of do, like, Changeling Tribal and just have a lord of every creature type.
So something cool that Joe got to do was play Judith swing in with his then 3/2, and if Nathaniel blocked, he just pinged,
Yep.
which ended up happening.
Vanifair ends up dying in that situation. Looks like Nathaniel either not really seeing the play, which I doubt is the fact, or just not finding Vanifair very relevant at this point. 5 mana being tapped. Here's the Ooze Man. Here he is.
Yep. So Joe will definitely need to get this off the board fast.
He's got a shock.
He does have a shock. Ooh.
This card is real bad against shock.
Ooh. Come on, Joe. Just
Or what's going on? I'm pretty sure
What's-
there's a shock. Is he gonna let him find the Ooze? Please let him find the Ooze.
did he do it in response to the trigger?
I'm not sure exactly the sequencing. How does the card read? Is it an
Oh,
ETB
sorry.
trigger?
So ETB, make a 2/2 ooze. End step, put a +1/+1 counter on
Okay.
each of the oozes. So
And there's another one, and then you can pay mana to make more Ooze.
yes, you can pay 4 mana. I'll go ahead and bring it up for our viewers right now. You can pay 1 and triple green in order to make another ooze.
But another shot going to take care of the token. 5 damage coming across from or from the creatures in play. Joe has land and is able to play both the cards that are under his Theater of Horrors this turn, putting Nathaniel down to 4, and with a full board. And Nathaniel's deck, no board clears.
Yeah.
No ways to interact.
Yeah. So Joe's debating because he has Spawn in hand right now.
I just think these are better. You don't have to discard the card, do you?
You do.
Is it mandatory?
It is mandatory.
What?
But if you are empty-handed, you get to just draw a card.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was not aware of that's...
No, it is mandatory that you have to discard,
Huh.
but it's also mandatory that you draw a card.
I can understand the
Yep.
the pause on it, but yeah, there's really nothing that's going on this board state, and Joe's gonna go ahead and pick the matchup 2-1. Kind of more what I expect. I expected it to be a 2-0 from Joe's, but Nathaniel being able to find a very good sequence of plays in the first game to pull him into that game.
Alrighty. So, in just a moment, we're going to get Alex in here, who is on Bant Nexus.
So I played a couple games with this deck before coming in here. Why is it allowed?
I don't know. It's not fun from the opponent's standpoint.
It's just not fun.
And yeah, like you get to play the fun policeman in Teferi,
Yep, gotta change the name on that.
and yeah, I don't have anything good to say. Like we've seen a lot of this deck already. We've seen the fan base blow up about the card itself and how it was a buy box promo and how basically like it was too constructive playable of a card.
To be a buy box promo.
Yeah.
You have the things that the Pro Tour where it got a bunch of play, having to proxy
I feel like
at the Pro Tour.
it I feel like a bunch of the players played it in spite of it being the buy box promo and being very clear to Wizards, like, we don't like this direction, you're gonna mess up. So if you want to go ahead and
Yeah, I'll go see if Alex
bring
wants to
in
call.
Alex, who is he's in there. But it seems like the only new cards we have. Okay, we have 2 new cards here. Okay. We're just
So
gonna have
Alex is
Andrew here.
preferring not to come in and talk, so we'll just go ahead and go over
That's
it.
shocking.
There's not a whole ton going on here. I mean, we've seen this deck before. We've seen Chart of Course, Root, Snare, Searcher's Kanta, all these other cards in this type of deck before. This is very close to the list that was played at the Pro Tour pre-rotation.
Yep.
Or Changes is a much better mana base,
Yes.
and Growth Spiral, Wilderness Reclamation.
Yep. I'm not sold on Wilderness Reclamation here.
You
like
have
I know
not played the games with
Okay.
it.
Like we will see. Like just first impressions. Do not claim to be 100% correct. And I know the little trick you can do with it plus Teferi to cast Nexus of Fate early. I think Growth Spiral is really good for this deck. I guess, yeah, being able to tap. You're not really tapping out. It's more like you're drawing some cards with Chemister's Insight, untap, and then cast Nexus of Fate or keeping up Root Snare.
Search for Skanta.
Activating Search for Iskanta twice. Seems strong.
Also, they stack. It's a trigger. It's not a Seedborn Muse effect.
Yeah.
So if you have two of them, you can go activate Iskanta, get a card, untap, activate Iskanta, get another card. You also have situations where if you go turn 4 Wilderness, you can go turn 5 Nexus by trigger on the stack, flip 5, and then play it again.
Yeah.
To just get deeper in your deck if you need to. Wilderness Reclamation is an incredibly powerful card for these types of decks. You also just have the incredible power that it has with cards like Expansion Explosion. So if you have your red mana off the Rootbound Crag going into your turn 5, you can go float 5, untap, float 5, 6 something on turn 5 with a Expansion Explosion.
I feel like this is the type of deck where you bring in those Memoricide cards finally. Like if
The what?
Memoricide
Oh,
style
okay,
cards.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you-
I forget what the Demir one is.
Unmoored Ego.
Yeah. Like if you start to see this style deck pop up more and more, I could definitely see reasons to bring in Unmoored Ego.
Yeah, if you're able to like double Unmoored and hit like Teferi Nexus, they can't win. They can, the best they can do is Expansion Explosion you out, and they have no counter spells, and your Unmoored Ego deck probably does.
Yeah. Alrighty, so let's get down to the match, and you can let them know they can get started.
You guys are good to start. But no, this Bant Nexus deck I am very afraid of. I am probably one of the people that get the most annoyed every time someone says the words ban a card when it comes to Standard since these last 2 years, but I actually think Nexus might need to.
Yeah, it leads to very unfun games. Like, I'm sure a lot of us have our opinions about KCI, and yeah, like one of the problems it comes to is it leads to unfun games to play and watch. It takes forever for it to actually win. It's not that the card in a vacuum is necessarily busted.
Yeah.
It's just the environment it's in, how it is used in the environment, and what type of games that it creates.
So my only flaw with like that part of the argument, as far as it comes for say a deck like KCI, is I've seen many times where like someone there's like Rest in Peace Stony Silence and another piece of interaction and play and the opponent loses.
Yeah. Being able to play mainboard engineered explosives, grabbing it off of stirrings, searching it up with inventors something.
There's just too many things the deck gets to do for effectively.
Vendors Fair. All right, so Nathaniel is trying to put on the pressure right now. Got
Looks
Tristani.
like a handful of fogs and an expansion explosion in Alex's hand. A total of 10 points of damage coming across. Yep, because 2 has already been done. Is Kanta trigger in the upkeep for Alex. Gonna go ahead and see. Looks like it's the card at least making him think here. Wonder what it might be. Chemister's Insight, usually one of the better cards to discard here. Chart of Course the pickup for draw. Definitely like Chart of Coursing here. Can't really do anything else with it. Because you have to hold up one of these fogs. 1 and 2 lands. It's pretty good from Alex's side here, I would believe. He has a hand of 4 fogs at the moment.
Man, I was playing Arena the other night and ended up playing against one of these Bant Nexus decks. And of course, like fog, you know how it goes.
Mhm.
I dealt with the Teferi, swinging for lethal. I was also trying to be careful, play around settle, but it didn't matter because just triple fog. It's like, okay, all right, we're through this. Swinging it again. Finally have a chance here. Oh, guess what? 4th fog. We haven't even been through the first quarter of the deck.
All the same one, or
Yeah, all the same one.
beautiful.
It was just the root snares.
So we have another fog going to go ahead and hit the board. Vanifair going to join a Druid of the Cowl from from Nathaniel's side. But I mean, just unfortunately, game 1, other than attacking, Nathaniel cannot interact with Alex's side of the game.
Yeah.
So another Charter Course is going to find a extra Searcher's Kanta and a Growth Spiral. The extra Searcher's Kantas are pretty much always binnable in this deck.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely like it less than the Expansion Explosion, but Alex is arguing the other direction. I suppose he wants one in play for after and his Kanta flips, but I'm not so sure about that there.
So if Alex does end up using up all of his fogs, then he has to get Mirari's Conjecture
Mhm.
to get them back.
Yep. Alex has a total of 6 in his deck, currently 3 in the hand.
Mm-hmm.
So he has a little bit of ways to go for that to happen. Vanifair is a sorcery, right? You can only...
Sorcery activation.
Yep, because it's proper pod. If only it was instant. And then you could interact with stuff on the stack.
Yeah, but I don't even know what you interact with here.
No clue, really. So we're going to see a Growth Spiral into a Root Snare. Interesting thing, so if it was instant, this is just like a very, very hypothetical.
Mm-hmm.
Is Root Snare the one that... Why is everything tapped? I guess
Nathaniel had attacked and was basically going, are you dead or do you have the fog?
Cavalier is the reason more why I'm asking. Here's our Sphinx's...
Yeah, I'm
Sphinx's
not sure why
Rev.
the Cavalier is tapped.
Probably just a denotation about it.
Yeah,
but Azor has come down, so Nathaniel can draw some irrelevant cards.
Yeah,
Hoo boy.
and gain some life.
Next is a Fate is made into Alex's hand, and I pretty much guarantee you, regardless of what the card is, Alex is going to turn his top card into his graveyard. Because I think it's card 7.
The extra search is definitely going to help. Well, no. If he's
Oh,
automatically
has it.
flipping, then, yeah, Knight's not even going to matter on Nathaniel's side.
His Kanta flipping. Looks like we came prepared and put both of them in the sleeve. For those who might not be aware, we are doing pretty much a full proxy night because we are just testing out new decks.
Mhm. And if you haven't figured it out by the board state, we are playing some Ravnica Allegiance Standard tonight.
It's been pretty sweet. A lot of these cards are very splashy, very powerful. I'm very excited for how the standard format's going to shape up. But tonight, Alex just went ahead and passed. Probably going to go ahead and go. Interesting that Teferi wasn't deployed. I feel like Teferi plus Root Snare was probably his best line because Teferi is the card you want in play when you have a Nexus.
Mm-hmm. So it looks like Alex is instead deciding to do a search for his Kanta.
Okay. So we're going to search here. I guess he might not know Nathaniel's deck list, so he's probably just being safe against like the Bant deck, but the way he's playing isn't necessarily safe against the Bant deck.
Yeah.
So it looks like Azor is getting potted.
And Nathaniel's going to draw a bunch of cards.
Yep. Just going to get a huge grip that's irrelevant. So here is Tashana. Going to go ahead and draw him a total of 8 cards. 8 more creatures that don't matter.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go.
So it sounds like Alex was looking for the untap enchantment.
But he did it on... He activated his Kanta on Nathaniel's turn.
Yeah, because he didn't have enough mana to be able to do both.
Mm-hmm. It's definitely the card that he wants here most because it makes these Nexus of Fate turns like so incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
Vanifer not being instant speed is actually probably most relevant with a card like Knight of Autumn because you can't get a Knight of Autumn to break up a Wilderness Reclamation, which is definitely a relevant thing. Crawl Harpooner, some other assorted creature Magic the Gathering cards in the hand. The backside of Incubation is Pognify, right?
Yes.
Okay.
1 a green and a blue.
Rapid Hybridization, rather. Yeah.
Yeah, specifically for the creature that it makes, yes.
Is it a Frog Lizard again?
It is a Frog Lizard again.
Hell yeah.
It does exile the creature. They decided to finally
Okay.
switch it over to that.
That is a better line.
Mhm.
All right, so here is the second Iscanta. Is this the Wilderness Reclamation? That it is. All right.
Okay.
So Alex now has access to quite a lot of mana. So what I would like to see here is an end of turn Nexus of Fate and move into the next turn with Teferi Wilderness Reclamation. And it looks like we're going for that.
That should be the plan.
So here is the first of many Nexuses that will be happening this game.
Yep.
So Wilderness Reclamation was the trigger on the stack. Alex floated mana. It didn't matter because he has access to 7 mana. But in some situations it will. It's a trigger, so you can respond to it by making mana in the same phase that the other mana will come through. So we're going to move to Alex's turn. Iskanta's going to trigger. This Iskanta won't be flipping, but it will be pretty much just cycling through Alex's draws. So now we're going to see Teferi. Alex is tapping like he is playing Magic Arena and using the auto tapper.
Okay.
Teferi. Growth Spiral before plussing Teferi. Put the land in from Growth Spiral? No? Okay. Both of these lands should be in play. Alex realizing
I think
now.
he read it as you can play an extra land this turn.
No. That's why it's an instant. All right, so end of turn Wilderness Reclamation. You still have the Teferi plus trigger on the stack as well. So Alex is going to pay 7 mana. Going to go ahead and get another Nexus. He can float 1. Or no, I think he's already untapped for Wilderness, so he can't do what I was getting at. But
Well, I think he did float 1 off of Wilderness.
Oh,
So
okay.
I don't think he used all of his mana.
He used
so
5,
he
6,
should
7.
be able to
Activate
untap
his
2
concept.
more and then untap it. Okay,
Yeah.
maybe I was mistaken.
I believe we're... No, because he put the Stomping Ground in tapped.
That's right.
That's what it is.
Which,
So he's
Okay.
going to upkeep... Okay.
he's going to decide what he wants to do. And then he's going to bin the card.
So he's
Then
still
he's going
on
to
upkeep.
search.
So,
They're still on upkeep.
Yeah. This gets Teferi.
Okay.
Draw for turn.
He's going to draw. There's another Teferi.
Okay.
He's going
Plus
to
this one.
draw.
It's just an island. All right. So we can move to end step, float 5 mana. Okay, so he's going
he's
to
gonna
Chemisters,
draw
which
2.
is probably
Okay.
better.
Discard a Teferi.
Yeah, probably one of these backups. So draw 2 cards. Not a Nexus. Not a Nexus. Mirage Conjecture is pretty powerful, but I think he still has access to a Fog in hand if I'm not wrong. So this time he's realizing. So he's going to float a blue off this Hollowed Fountain. Untap everything. Teferi's untapped trigger is still on the stack. So he can use 3 more mana. Oh, he just floated a mana. Why is he tapping 5? Is he arcing? No, he's just... There we go.
There we go.
Figured it out.
I think Nathaniel let him know.
So now we're activating his Kanta again. So he gets... looks like just another Teferi. Teferi's
Ooh.
untap still resolves. And now it's Nathaniel's turn.
We're having fun, right?
I am enjoying myself trying to understand Alex's sequencing of everything. That's my part of the game right now. So, Nathaniel does have this Knight of Autumn to be able to answer. Does Tashana give you no maximum hand size?
I believe so.
Okay. So here's a Fog. Gonna go ahead and say, please do not bully me. And then this Knight of Autumn here can come in and destroy the Wilderness Reclamation, but I really just feel like this game's too far gone. If Alex is to untap again from the board position he's in, I feel like he just has such a powerful side of it. He can, is Conta here end of turn, probably find another Wilderness Reclamation.
Yeah. Or Nexus.
Mm-hmm. I really do hope that what we've seen so far shows you why Wilderness Reclamation is so powerful in this deck.
Mm-hmm.
He's just been able to do so many things in a turn. It's literally just one-sided heartbeat.
It just feels like there's less interaction with this version because you have to cut some number of cards for the Wilderness Reclamation.
This is not a control deck. This is a combo deck.
Yeah. But I feel like this folds a lot easier to a control deck.
Correct. This deck definitely has a very bad, like, Niv Mizzet Jeskai control matchup or something like that. But you gain more in your mid-range and aggro matchups by being able to be this combo deck that just, if I do my thing in the right order, I win the game.
Mm-hmm.
Nathaniel's going to continue putting more assorted cards into play.
Yep.
I really
be
hope
able to make so many oozes.
I really hope that at this point, Alex somehow loses.
Like, it's still possible,
I mean, sure.
but it's just not.
End of turn is Conta activation. There's another Wilderness Reclamation. That's pretty much the best card I think he could have found here. And the deck is getting pretty thin. So, is Conta trigger? See the top card? Looks like he might be happy with it. Draw it. It is another Wilderness Reclamation. All right. We're getting to the fun part of the game. So there's a Reclamation. I would like to draw us to Teferi before we play more cards.
What? No. Okay.
Just see more options. All right, found an island. Have not played a land yet this
All
turn.
right. So we got another Reclamation?
Yep. So
Or are we in a situation where we need to conjecture?
I think we might need a conjecture just because there is a miss. There's a percentage that we miss. First part gets an instant or a sorcery.
I believe the first part gets an instant.
Okay.
I like how he just said yes.
Yeah, that's very, very useful. So
Correct.
Reclamation trigger on stack, flowed mana. We can go ahead and as Conta down another handful of cards to see if we can find a Nexus. We also have the Teferi untap if Alex remembers it. So 1, 2, 3, 4. We do not find a Nexus. Looks like there is a Chemist's Insight and a Growth Spiral. So if Alex remembers the untapped Growth Spiral, gets him another card deeper. Nathaniel here, hand in head. 2 mana. It looks like we are remembering the Teferi. Picked up
Another fog.
Another fog. Good. Teferi untapped 3 lands for some reason. There we go. Alex is very confused. All right, Nathaniel, what green creatures do you want to put into play this turn? Why are you even bothering? So when I've played against Turbo Fog in like a couple different formats, like the Sphinx's Tutelage Turbo Fog is the most recent time that it was playable before this.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just a point where I just stop like turning my creatures. I'm like, they're attacking. And it's like, do you fog me? Okay. I'm not going to touch them.
Like, Alex should just upkeep fog you. Can we go back to my turn?
What are you doing over there, buddy? Nothing? You play 1 Knight of Autumn, and you have no clone effects. Because, boy, if like this type of deck could have access to Vizier of Many Faces, you'd be pretty happy.
Mm-hmm. Well, he does have 2 Knight of Autumns in the sideboard.
Yeah, those will probably be coming in on top of his Disdainful Strokes and Negates.
Mm-hmm.
Attack with my Vanifair. Please no bully. Okay. No bully has succeeded. I have more creatures. Is this good yet? Is it good for me to have more creatures? I don't want this creatures anymore. I feel like the Glorious Anthem creature is better than anything in the deck when you have 18 creatures.
Do you just want to go into the other room, grab Nathaniel's hands,
and just
put them down, and say no,
and
just stop.
Like, what? Okay,
Just
we
let
are
it happen.
At the point in the game,
Just let it happen.
we are at the point in the game where your game action should be attack, pass, attack, pass, attack, pass. Someone agreeing in the chat here that Reclamation is too good. He got some 1/1 soldier tokens, and he can get them all indestructible now. Is this good yet? We're gonna see another
right.
Esconta
Oh,
activation.
there
Oh,
we
look,
go.
some Nexus of Fates. Are we still here? Alex making sure that Esconta is any order or random order. Esconta is one that is any order. Everything roughly.
I think Ixalan stuff, like Ixalan block,
Yeah.
was any order.
It's roughly after that is when random order started showing up. Random order
I think it was
primarily.
core
Yeah.
random started.
Random
I'm not
order-
sure about Dominaria.
Random order has been really big recently because it's just so much easier on like Magic Arena.
Does he run any sorceries?
We've got some sleeps, some people sleeping in the chat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm very excited for another hour.
Yeah, Morari's Conjecture is first instant, then sorcery, so it's not either
Did he
or.
target it with Mirari's Conjecture? Okay. All right, there we are. Triple Reclamation.
Oh my god.
We haven't used Teferi yet. Don't move to your end step. You got to use Teferi.
You need to draw a card first.
He's got Chart a Course. You should draw with your Teferi before you Chart a Course. Okay.
He's got a chart, of course.
We don't need this fog.
Don't need this fog anymore.
Oh, we remembered about Teferi. Are we tucking the Mirari Conjecture? Bold. Move to my first of 3 untapped steps. Draw a card with Arch of Araska.
Why? Just float the map.
Ooh, look, some neck size.
Oh my god.
Oh, we're getting the Mirari Conjecture. Because there's an expansion explosion in his graveyard and he wants to kill him. I hope he just forgets in his like third untap that he has to cast an.
I know.
All right, third untap. Okay, we remembered. Can we move on yet?
Hey, can we move on? I want to go somewhere.
All right, no, upkeep. It's Conta Trigger.
Did he really mill it?
Nathaniel's finally scooping.
We're done.
Thank
But yeah,
you.
what's gonna happen there
Thank
is
you.
the Mirari Conjecture is gonna pick up the expansion explosion. Nathaniel's Alex is gonna move to his end step. He's gonna float 1 billion mana, untap, float 1 billion mana, untap, unfloat another 1 billion mana, and then make Nathaniel draw his whole deck and take a bunch of damage.
Woo.
All right. So,
Okay.
moving into sideboard,
Yep.
Nathaniel's going to have some ways to interact with his opponent.
I wonder what the main one is.
3 copies in negate, 1 disdainful stroke are definitely cards that I want to be seeing here. I'm not really a big fan of anything else. Potentially Ixalan's Binding.
So, I kind of like Tithe Taker
Okay.
just to trip up Alex a little on mana
Okay.
for the fog. Like, it doesn't do very much good. Like, it might just simply be worse than having any mana ramp.
Yeah, we're moving on to game 2 right now.
But I would like take out the Harpooner to put one in.
Yeah.
Why not?
Your Harpooner, your 2
Take
Exclusion
out the
Mages.
2 Exclusion Mages for the Knights.
Your Lena, your probably the Ooze is too goofy.
I don't know. You just want to put pressure on the opponent while you're negating and disdainful stroking.
Think like 5 mana 2/2 is pressure. I know it's 6/6 effectively,
It's
but
6/6.
I don't think it's enough pressure.
I think you want to trim a little bit, just to make sure that you're still very low to the ground while you're disrupting. Like you're trying to beat tempo-ish. So you're taking out the Tishana. Taking out the Exclusion Mages. Like I can still see putting in maybe a couple Tithe Takers.
The most important thing from Alex's side is he got game 1.
You put in Deputy
Yes.
in case there's a Teferi.
You can deputy the
You can Deputy
like all the
anything
wilderness
that he
reclamations or
actually
whatever.
has on the board.
Yeah. No, I definitely
So,
like
the Knight's the Deputy, and
Knight's deputy, Tithe Taker, negate. That's
Uh,
it's heavy. I don't love Tithe Taker.
yeah, I probably wouldn't worry about it if we're at this point. So-
In my
but
honest
negates
opinion,
disdainful stroke.
I don't
definitely.
actually think Tithe Taker is as good as people are like making it out to be.
No, it's no Thalia by
Yeah.
a long shot.
But yeah, that's what I'd like to see. From Alex.
You were the one comparing it to Voice of Resurgence,
in
sir.
an aggro matchup, yes, I think that comparison is viable in an aggro matchup.
Okay,
But I don't think it's good.
let's head on over to Alex's sideboard.
Negates and Tithe Takers, eh?
Hmm.
I like Cleansing Nova. I like that card against the Creatures green deck.
I agree. I think wiping a bunch of creatures, in which Nathaniel plays a ton of.
I don't
It's
like
pretty good.
trying to negate the negates.
No, not at all.
I obviously think Tithe Taker is not.
I think Lyra's good.
Lyra's probably. I don't know how good Lyra actually is.
Well, what ways does Nathaniel have to deal with it?
I understand, but I feel like if we get in this like kind of staring match of like Lyra versus Nathaniel's board will outclass it.
Yeah, because I guess Alex doesn't have much interaction.
Yeah.
Like cleansing Nova into Lyra. Yeah, but
Like that's the best that he
but
can do.
it's
I'm-
two of.
The thing is, I don't want to take too much of what we already have going on in the main deck out.
Especially since Nathaniel can't interact with much of it.
Yeah, I like the 2 Cleansing Novas, and I'm not a fan of the Expansion Explosion once we're in sideboard games. And I think we probably want to trim on. I'm not sure like what the other card should be, but I'd just say 2 Cleansing Nova, 1 Expansion Explosion out, maybe a Fog out if we're bringing in Wrath.
No, you need more cards since they're bringing in negates. Like you need more of those effects. I'm trying to say.
Okay.
Because they have negates. Because some of them are not going to resolve, and you need to make sure just not to die.
So maybe just trim like 1 Chart of Course.
Yeah, I think Chart of Course is probably one of the weaker cards. Like it's either that or a Growth Spiral. If Alex remembers to put a land in off a Growth Spiral, then he's fine.
The let's go ahead and move down to the match then. I think we can go ahead and start. You guys are ready to start. And there's a giant wilderness reclamation in the middle of the battlefield. There it is. Do both players just actively have this effect?
I think Alex would be fine with that.
Yeah.
I don't think Nathaniel would be fine with that.
So can we get rid of that, by the way? Definitely printed onto a full page accidentally.
Yep. Oh, we heard you guys laughing in the other room,
I was,
and then it was brought in here.
Pretty happy about it. Drew to the Cowl is the start from Nathaniel, and Alex's best start in the Search for Skanta. Have not seen Nathaniel starting on a Land of War Elves today. I don't believe.
I think you're correct.
Looks like Nathaniel might be missing on white mana of some sort. And there is a Tithe Taker in the hand, if I'm not mistaken. Or no, that might just be a Bugler. But yeah, a bunch of blue and green mana. Here is an Incubation. Gonna go ahead and see White Land, Land of War
Oh
Elves.
man, there it is.
There it is.
Hey, you finally get to play that Llanowar Elf.
There he is. The man. The myth. Merfolk Branchwalker is gonna 100%.
Yeah, I should have did that first.
Dude, there's Knight of Autumn. Can't cast
But I
that card.
can't cast.
Would you like this Knight of Autumn?
Oh, that's awkward.
Hey, Natty, do you want this? I'm gonna guess the answer is no. He's really thinking.
I think he's just very frustrated about putting those Temple Gardens on the bottom.
Yeah, especially because they were both on the top, and if
Yep.
he branch walked first.
Yep.
Big old attack for 1. Not gonna go ahead and put that Land of War Elves into play. It looks like he's gonna change his mind. Gain 1 life. I'd like an elf. Is Kanta going to flip over the Cleansing Nova? So we did see those come in. Alex's hand looks like there's a Chart of Course, Teferi, land, and some other stuff. The Expansion Explosion, probably the easiest card to pitch early, and Alex is going to go ahead and agree with me.
Yeah.
So here Nathaniel gets to start holding Negate up. Ah, yes, another blue-green land. I was having
Exactly what he needed.
I was having this problem in my game 1 against Josh. I had Aurelia, Taijik in hand and was like stomping ground, rootbound crag.
Like, the best way to get as much consistency as possible off of your mana base if you're trying to go 3-color
Wilderness Reclamation is going to be negated.
is kind of determining, okay, what are the 2 primary colors, and then what is kind of the secondary color that I'm choosing.
Yeah.
Or I guess in this case, tertiary color.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean. And making sure that your mana base is coordinated in that way, because like Nathaniel's trying to kind of do all the colors. Like green is his primary color.
Yeah.
But he's still leaning very heavy on blue with some of the cards and very heavy on white with some of the other cards instead of doing a splash for one of them.
He has a blue-green deck that has very powerful white cards and some double white in some instances as we draw Forest.
Yep.
To add to our hand of white cards.
Well, like he has the 4/4 Vigilance that makes 2 dudes. That requires double white. He has Azor, once again, double white.
Here we see Alex resolving a Teferi, getting a fog off on Nathaniel so that Nathaniel's board continues to not matter. And it looks like we might get our Wilderness Reclamation to pair with our Teferi, and this is when the deck, again, just starts doing very powerful things. So we have access to 8 mana in the end step if Alex so chooses to use it, or just to chart a course now. We still have access to 8 mana because
we
of
still have
Teferi.
8.
So chart a course here, going to go ahead and discard, looks like just a land, but Alex currently without any way to interact on the board. So one thing he can do is with this Teferi trigger on the stack, or with the Wilderness Reclamation, he's going to go ahead and cast a Growth Spiral, which will put land 7 into play, and he could, if he drew it, play a Nexus of Fate, but it looks like he unfortunately does not have access to that at the current moment. Looks like maybe just a Chemister's Insight going to be cast, or... Because I saw him floating mana. Yep. Going to pick a Chemister's out. Discarding... Cleansing Nova, okay. Finds Archeraska land. So Teferi is currently not dying. He's going to 1 from this attack. So that's an important thing, and there's no way for Nathaniel to kill Alex either.
Yeah, I'm a little curious why Alex didn't discard the Teferi and keep the Cleansing Nova. Because then he would be able to Cleansing Nova the following turn.
Maybe just worried about, say, land into Tristani, which would kill the Teferi that's in play. It's the only thing I could see. Third Risconta seeing another Risconta, just probably going to put that one in the graveyard. It's just, he's going to do this, and then immediately flip the one that's in play. He just wasted so much time.
You seem frustrated.
What was that?
This is the first 33 minutes I wasted.
He was making relevant game actions in the first 33 minutes. But
It was Nathaniel that was just not giving up.
so Iscanta is now flipped again. Alex is at 5 though, so he is starting to be threatened by the board as it stands. Looks like we're going to be spending 2 mana on a search for Iscanta. Literally could have just flipped that one in play. Teferi going to go ahead and tick up. Going to go ahead and find a... Looks like we found a fog this time around. But that's not as safe now that we know there are cards like Negate. So we can activate his Kanta.
I think he's going to conjecture here.
Okay.
That way he can guarantee a fog.
Oh, because they'll have 2.
Yeah. And then he can get back Cleansing Nova the following turn.
I feel like the best pickup here is Expansion Explosion because it's both a fog and a counterspell. Because if you fog, he counters it. You can you can choose either of them. And it's better in the long run, I feel.
No, I think in that situation, you still want to grab the fog.
Okay.
Because then if Nathaniel doesn't have an interaction, that's an additional fog that you have.
So Alex here
For
going to
later
go
on.
ahead and float a mana and then activate his Kanta in the end step. Finds a Growth Spiral. Believe he should still have the Teferi on tap, and that he does. So now we're going to be passing over to Nathaniel, I should believe. Unless he wants to spiral now, but I don't see much of a reason to.
Mm-hmm. Like, he's better off searching.
Nathaniel looks at his hand and says something to it, meaning it's not what he wanted. Here is an attack that is lethal, but here is a assorted "Please do not bully me" card.
Should Alex just be
Greenland.
Yeah. Should Alex just be casting these in
Upkeep, yes.
Upkeep.
Before he can draw. Yep. Nathaniel's entire hand is currently white.
All right, and search.
Activate of his Kanta. He's going to go ahead and see another fog. There's the Nexus of Fate. And Nathaniel doesn't want to play anymore. All right.
Blow out everybody's eardrums.
Sorry.
You have a mic at your face.
Oh, good. It's my turn.
Alrighty.
I'm going.
So-
Did you want to come in and talk about your deck?
I mean, you know enough about it. You can talk about it.
Okay.
You know what the original design plan was.
I got to do this again.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So we're gonna get Connor's deck list up in a moment. And Andrew is going to tell us all about it.
Red,
We're
green,
gonna
4-drops. Creatures that have 4 to 5 mana cost in red and green. All right, so Connor is playing another Rhythm of the Wild-esque deck, looking to use this enchantment to power out very, very heavy creatures like Steelleaf Champion, Rekindling Phoenix, Ripjaw Raptor, Vine Mare, Demanding Dragon. All of these cards, if they have a raid trigger, are very, very powerful potentially. You also get the value of being able to both haste and +1/+1 counter a Skargan Hellkite. Hasting Carnage Tyrants, if you've played any red-green dinosaurs, is very good. Unfortunately, the rest of your deck is not. But there are some very powerful turn patterns that you can have with this deck. When Connor was playing against me, I came into he had multiple games where he went Llanowar Elves into Rhythm of the Wild, and then just from there on out, everything he played was a potential very threatening card. Rekindling Phoenix is very powerful when it's hasting regardless of when you play it. And then you just have a lot of cards that are fine. Ripjaw Raptor has always been a card that is probably just underplayable. And just my major issue with this deck as it's built is, other than Llanowar Elves and Lightning Strike, you can't play the game until turn 3 or 4.
Yeah. So you have Rhythm of the Wild, you have Steelleaf Champion, you have Risk Factor at 3.
It's not a thing.
And yeah, essentially Steelleaf Champion is your only like real play at 3 if you're not like setting up for the next turn. And you need that interaction earlier in the game. Like we saw in your matchup against Connor earlier tonight. Basically, like if he doesn't have anything to block early or interact early, you can just curve out and just run over him.
Connor was saying that this originally was a Sarkhan's Unsealing deck instead of the Skargan Hellkite.
Which I think makes a lot more sense with a lot of the
choices.
Yeah, a lot of the mana costs, a lot of the powers. He should probably still be playing either Druid the Cowl or the new guy, Incubation Druid, especially if you have that extra mana and your deck is just kind of a ramp deck. And because you're playing Rhythm of the Wild, and you can just have it come in with a +1/+1 counter, so you can tap for
+1 mana on the turn you play it if you have a Rhythm. Or no, because you can't give haste and the counter.
Yeah, you got to choose. You can't have both.
If you
have
have
to
two
just
Rhythms,
stare at that cake. You can't eat it too.
But no, there's a lot of powerful things that this deck can do. I feel like Lightning Strike is out of place when it should probably be on Lava Coil instead. I feel like in the sideboard, Experimental Frenzy is bold.
Yes, especially with all these 4-drops. Cindervine seems good.
That card
like
is very
Domri
strong.
seems good. Banefire seems good.
Domri
I like a lot
was-
of these other choices.
When I was building my deck, I want to say Domri was card like 76, 77.
Okay, like
It was
just barely
just
missed
like-
the cut.
Yeah. Vivian was better. I didn't want another Planeswalker other than Vivian. But all right, we're going to go ahead and you guys are ready to play. So we're going to see. I got to play some games of this. This is the matchup that I played. It's not close. 5-drop green creatures lose to fogs.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when the Abzan Reanimator deck, like the Craterhoof Lingering Souls on Barrow Rights deck, with a deck, and there was the Bant Turbofog deck that played like Jace Memory Adept to kill your opponent, and that deck, the Abzan Reanimator was like the most popular deck at the time. It was literally impossible for them to interact with fogs and a Planeswalker. So if you put Memory Adept in play and had Fog in your hand, you could literally just reveal your hand and they'd have to concede because they can't interact with you. But here we see Growth Spiral into Wilderness Reclamation into Teferi.
Yep.
This is where Alex's deck wants to be.
Yep.
Unfortunately, or is there a Fog in there? Ooh, we're going
There is
face.
a Fog. Like, he doesn't mind right now.
Vinemare going to go ahead and...
Now, there is a Demanding Dragon.
Yes.
Something to keep in mind. Connor can just kind of win through.
Alex picked up a Nexus, though, so he has the float mana on untap play Nexus play at his disposal.
Mm-hmm.
So, yep, end step, triggers on stack. And he has the 2 mana from Teferi as well, so... Or there's no way for him to, like, draw more cards here. Connor's head currently in hand. This is when Magic is fun.
Mm-hmm. So much fun.
But yeah, we're going to see Alex here being able to do some kind of ridiculous things with his deck, as long as his draws work. The issue here is he doesn't have access to something like Search for his Kanta to give him extra cards outside of the Teferi. So he's not really digging through anything. He does find a Fog, though, so he's not in any danger anymore. So this might be a turn where we, like a second Teferi is a good choice, but he opts against it. Land gonna just go in and untap from the Wilderness Reclamation.
And unfortunately, he is 1 card short from having City's Blessing. That's why you did not see him activate that.
He's going to intelligently see that he needs to protect his life total. And if he didn't do that Fog and put himself to 2, or to prevent him from going to 2, he would have ended up losing. So very good for Alex that he did not. Gonna go ahead and see Teferi hit 8 here.
And we got
There
a
it
Nexus.
is! Woo!
And
Game's over!
all right. And he gets to cast the Nexus.
Because
Then he gets to draw a card.
he gets to ult Teferi, play a second Teferi. Woo!
Woo.
Magic the Gathering. At least this game's quick. We're under 3 minutes right now.
Okay. Untap, draw your...
He found another Nexus.
Activate?
Yeah, he activated end of turn, I think. Yeah, because
Oh, okay.
he still
He
had
did
the
activate.
Wilderness.
Okay.
So now he's going to Ultimate Teferi. So there's an emblem in play. He has the ability to go, here's my other Teferi. Connor's still here for some reason. Plus, exile... I guess he can't exile Vinemare.
Yeah.
Is that relevant? Okay. 2 mana here is going to be a Growth Spiral, which we're going straight for the lands. I love this.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to move to the untap. Float a mana. Alex has no idea what's going on. 6, 7. Here's another Nexus. Are we done yet? Connor says no.
So... Okay, he doesn't have the red source yet to just explosion and get rid of all the non-Vinemare permanents.
Yeah. We cannot do
He does
that
have a Charter Course, though.
just yet. But now we're moving to our next extra turn. We still have this Teferi in play. We picked up another Charter Course. So, draw, get rid of a land. Draw from Teferi, get rid of a land. Connor's really having a good time. The Mirari Conjecture, because I guess this gets Growth Spiral. That's probably the best instant to get right now.
Well, it guarantees Fog back.
I think he already has one. Yeah, he's just going to get Growth Spiral because there's another card. If Connor has no lands and Alex has consistent Fogs, he can't lose. So, So Charter Course, draw 2, get rid of land plus Demanding Dragon is objectively more dangerous than Steel Leaf Champion. They're the same thing from Alex's perspective, but head of turn.
And then Alex, just on Connor's turn, can go ahead and exile the Steel Leaf Champion if needed.
Attack you. No,
or
thank
Fog.
you. Connor is contemplating his life choices. We see a Chemister's Insight here, end of turn. You no longer have that. Luckily, it's not like Venser's emblem, where you have to start targeting your own stuff. Murari Conjecture Tick 2 is going to find a sorcery. I'm pretty sure Tick 2 is sorcery only.
Correct.
You can't pick up Chemisters, was Murari's second chapter.
Let's
So-
take chart.
Yeah. Oh no.
Oh no.
It's like the same card right here. 2 mana. Here's a Chart of Course. 1, 2. More lands in the graveyard. Still haven't used Teferi. Here's another Chart of Course. There's a Nexus. There's another Nexus. Woo, lad. Are we growthing? Growth Spiral. Put a land in. Oh boy. Another one? Ah, yes. What we came here for. There's the red mana. Still haven't used Teferi. We just don't want to use it. That's fair. Float mana. Nexus. I don't know which lands are and which lands aren't tapped. Expansion Explosion you. Is this okay? Connor says no. Because we're doubling it for Mari's Conjecture. It's lethal, by the way. He only needs to have 9 lands in play. We have more than 9 lands in play. Yeah.
There we go.
All right.
Yeah. Basically, what happened was explosion off of floating mana during the end step.
Yep.
It was just enough to
We did it, boys.
deal all the damage. Oh, plus Mari's Conjecture to double it.
Yeah, there was a Teferi Ultimate, and Connor hung out because he had a Vine Mare. Can't
All
Teferi
right.
Ultimate the Vine Mare.
So, sideboard.
Uh-huh.
I see a Banefire.
I see Cindervine.
I see some Cindervines. Excuse me. I think all 4 of those are coming in.
Yep. Oh, there's a set in his? Wow.
Yeah. That seems really good here.
Yep. I would like the 4 Cindervines, the 2 Banefires. I don't really want the Rhythms of the Wild. I don't expect any counter spells out of the Turbo Fog deck. Well, the haste part of it can be good. I just think that that's not really where you want to be. You don't want cards to individually, or you want all your cards to individually matter in these types of decks. Hence why, like, I brought them out when I was playing against Josh. But
I think you can take the Raptors out.
yeah, that card bad.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
From Alex's side, Lyra?
I would probably bring in those Invoke the Divines. I don't know if he knows to bring those in, but
Being able to answer Cindervines is very important.
yes.
So I like Invoke the Divines. I like Lyra. There's an argument for Cleansing Nova, but you can't really trim that many cards from your main deck. This is a matchup where the Expansion Explosion, or I guess you do need it to have an actual win condition.
Yes. That's important.
Okay, so you need to keep that in.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, you don't actually need it. So what you can do is if you get a Teferi emblem and then start doing the Teferi Tuck thing, as long as they don't have a Vine Mare, they can only ever play 1 land at a time, and they probably can't win. You don't even need to do the Teferi Tuck thing because you have the 4 Nexuses, which are just constantly in your deck. So
Nexus doesn't allow you to loop because you have to draw the next turn.
you draw the Nexus, and you're at 8 cards. You discard the Nexus. Yeah. I don't think it will be hard for him to have 7 cards
Okay.
in hand if we're at that point in
Well.
the game.
I think we want to go ahead and get this over with.
Yeah. You guys are good to play.
if you want to check out the first 4 rounds, which
Uh-huh.
do not include Bant Nexus, we'll be showing a replay after this. just in case.
For the matches you actually want to watch, stay tuned.
I know this is all just delightful and a very good use of your time, but we do have 4 non-Nexus matchups.
We do. And they were pretty enjoyable for the most part. Here, Alex's opening hand looks like there's Search for Esconta and 2 lands that cast Search for Esconta, so it's probably keepable. Connor not happy with his hand. It probably consisted of 3 lands and some 4 drops.
I would take that bet.
All of the decks are they actively stored somewhere at the moment, or is it just like if we link them?
I mean, we can make them available if someone's asking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
someone in chat's asking. I think we can probably just like post links.
Alrighty. Yeah, I'll go down the...
Let them know those links. We do update and change
Yeah.
those,
Okay.
so make a copy of it if you want to keep it.
So one thing that we do is, or deck lists on MTG Goldfish, we actively update them. It's just the most efficient way for the way that our stream is put together. So if you want to use any of these, you will need to copy them for yourself so that you have access to it. But here in the game, we see 2 Cinder Vines from Connor's side versus a Search for Esconta from Alex's. So Alex's spells are currently being Scab Clan Berserkered is the best way to say it, with a Steel Leaf Champion following up, and a Growth Spiral being 2 damage here. And there is the 4th land for Alex. Connor here looks like he might be looking up a ruling. I think he's looking up the ruling on Cinder Vines because, unfortunately, or print is in Italian, as it happens. Alex here looking for his Esconta card. It looks like we're binning a Wilderness Reclamation here. 5 mana available for Alex. Importantly for Cinder Vines, can the trigger be redirected to Planeswalkers?
No.
Okay.
It no longer can do that. That ruling was gotten rid of when they switched things over.
I meant more like, can it target Planeswalker?
Oh, can it target the plane? Does it deal to a Planeswalker or...
Either side of it.
Deals 1 damage to that player.
Okay.
So no.
I just want to make sure.
Mhm.
So here we're going to see Esconta binning a Growth Spiral. Alex having some trouble here. These 2 Cinder Vines definitely being a problem. And we might even see something like Cleansing Nova come in just because it can clear off these Cinder Vines. Because if they're in play, Alex can't win. 5 mana for Teferi here. Going to go ahead and take 2. And it has to minus to get rid of a Cinder Vines, which is going to destroy the Esconta and put Alex to 6. Alex is dead on board, so we're going to be moving into a game 3 here.
Neat.
Off of the power of Cinder Vines. Looks like Alex is going to be making some sideboard adjustments, probably to be able to handle the Vines. Chemist's Insights look like they might be coming out, and the Invoke the Divines are now coming in, so we did not have them previously.
Yeah. I wouldn't expect him to know to bring that card in.
At least not until we've
after.
Yeah, not until we've played enough games of this standard format to know that these green-red decks are going to have access to these cards. And I do very strongly believe that your green-red decks are going to be able to sideboard a card like Cinder Vines. Huh. Looks like the Ripjaw Raptors and even Rekindling Phoenix might have come out of the deck from Connor while he was fingering through his sideboard there. But we have, we're going into game 3 with a Bant Nexus deck, and we have 35 minutes on the clock.
Neat.
So that's happened somehow. So Alex does get to be on the play here. So if we have another explosive draw like the Growth Spiral into Reclamation into Teferi, he's going to just be so far ahead that I'm not sure there's anything Connor can really do to come back from that, as we saw in game 1. But looks like Lyra Dawnbringer, Invoke the Divine, Growth Spiral, Chart a Course lands. From Connor's side, looks like it might be Forest Stomping Ground Are those the experimental? No, those are the Hellkites. Thank you. Looks like he's going to take a mulligan. Not happy with the 3 mana sources plus 5 drops hand. That his deck seems like it might produce quite a lot. And if you're currently wondering why the speaking has come a little more one-sided, it's because I like to listen to myself and because we just posted all the decks. So...
Apparently, Twitch does not like line breaks, so sorry, that's a little bit together, but that should be spaced out enough to make it easy.
Sweet.
Also, I'm a little disappointed that we used RG Monsters and RB Aggro instead of our guild names.
Yeah, as far as the players did. You see, I used my shard name.
Well, like, that makes sense. Like,
Wigger. Connor on a pretty mopey looking 5-card hand. I think that
it's got a land.
The saving grace is there is a Cinder Vines. But Alex has an Invoke the Divine. Currently no white mana in play, but there's a Hollowed Fountain hanging out in the grip. So Cinder Vine's probably going to come down. Choice between that or Land of Elves. It looks like we're going to go for Land of Elves. Growth Spiral end of turn from Alex. Going to put the Hollowed Fountain in.
And got another Invoke the Divine.
There's a Forest, so 2 cards in a discard. Initial Squid. We appreciate you joining us here.
Thank you for getting there.
One of the Invoke Divines going to put in the graveyard here, and the second Cinder Vine's picked up from Connor. So that is quite the punish. And just straight drawing, not interested in looking at the top card. Lyra, okay. Lyra's going to potentially cause some problems here from Connor's side, especially because there's no 5th land. Rhythm of the Wild, another Cinder Vine. Yep, there's Rhythm of the Wild.
Yeah, Cinder Vines is not going to deal with a Lyra.
No, not at all. So is Conte going to put a Teferi in the graveyard? Find a land. Invoke Teferi. I'd like to see Teferi plus.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
1 damage dealt to Alex, but I don't think he's that worried about the pings anymore with this Lyra in play. There's a Nexus of Fate, quite a powerful card. Just moving to the end step, which I don't mind all that much. Invoke the Divine on these Cinder Vines. Probably going to go ahead and Destructive Revelry. So Alex
I
gains
like
no life.
swinging with this Lyra.
So I think what he's worried about is, say there's a land plus, or just, I guess you need land. Yeah, land Rekindling Phoenix is what he's like maybe playing around here. But yeah, I'm not.
But you gain the 5 life ahead of time.
Yeah.
Okay.
He wants to be able to just like eat it, I guess. It's not great in my opinion. But now you can attack and then Nexus of Fate and attack again. Amusingly though, Lyra means that there's actually a card that Demanding Dragon kills. No, because it's a Punisher effect. So
you have the choice, and I'm pretty sure Alex would just take the damage in most cases.
See, I assumed it was one of the black cards that do it unless you can't.
Okay, so let's see if he swings with this Lyra, since he has an extra turn now.
I would hope. So Connor going to go to 15, Alex up to 15. So we're going to see the extra turn here from Alex. Picked up another Nexus of Fates.
I think this game is
the over
pretty far done.
I think over is the word we're looking for.
Oh no. Take 1.
Teferi still has not even activated at the current moment. There's also a line that Alex would do of like minus Teferi on the Cinder Vines and then play the Wilderness Reclamation that's in his hand, but I just don't think it matters.
No.
19 to 10. Nothing that Alex can do for 2, so we draw a card. I think he's realizing that he might have missed a fairy. I'm not 100% sure on if he did or didn't. Connor now down to 5, Alex up to 24. Teferi going to 8. Finds a fogs of some sort. It's like, I don't know. Go ahead. What you got?
Go.
You got Land of Worlds, eh? Hey, that guy has haste.
He does.
Or is it 2/2?
It's like a free drop. He just tap a green, play a Llanowar.
Is it like a variation of a
tap a
3-drop?
green?
Like a free drop? Is that a variation of a 3-drop?
Free drop.
It's like the ally ramp creature that has haste. The 2-mana 1/1.
right.
But yeah, we
Connor
see
is going to scoop it up.
Lyra with a time stretch is pretty good.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Get a 15 them gain 15. I'm a fan. So we saw Bant Nexus win its rounds. But let's talk about the not Bant Nexus decks. So in the beginning, I was down in the fray playing my Naya Fires deck. I was pretty impressed with it.
It looked very strong. It seemed like a good, like I know it was Naya, but essentially a good framework with Gruul, and you just splashed in a few good white cards with it. It had a very good curve. It had an early game. It was able to play the late game in certain matchups as needed. Connor was able to get you once with monsters.
Monsters.
With green red monsters.
I saw that in chat a few times, and I was like, why is that coming up? If you didn't point it up to me, I would have never noticed.
But outside of being able to curve out once against you when you were kind of tripping on your mana, I was definitely impressed with a number of cards from your deck, especially the Growth Chamber Guardian.
That card is good.
Then we had Josh playing his Orzhov Control, and that did not go very well against the aggro decks.
I want your opinion. Do you think Kaya is a good card for standard play?
I think it might have a good, might have a few matchups where it's reasonable that you want it in the sideboard. I do not think it is main deckable at this point. I think Josh really needed some better interaction at the 2 and 3 drop slots in his deck. He was already playing a little bit. He needed more cards to be able to interact earlier in the game.
My major issue with Kaya is it just feels like it is only really, really powerful against like exactly the red X aggro decks or the white X aggro decks. It's just bad everywhere else.
Yeah. We had Joe on red-black aggro, in which seemed pretty good. He did have a little bit of trouble in the late game, and especially against some 3 toughness creatures that Nathaniel had put out. We had Nathaniel on Bantafar. I think it was a fun deck.
Yeah.
I do not think it's a competitive deck.
Nope.
It doesn't really have any interaction. It just plays a bunch of creatures and tries to get there.
It is sweet for your FNMs.
Yeah.
That is a deck that would love a Declaration in Stone.
Yes. Then we had Alex on Bant Nexus. We have one of the people in chat asking, do we think that they should ban Nexus in Standard? I don't think we're at that point.
I think we will see. If we need to, it'll be an emergency ban.
I don't think it'll be emergency ban now that they do 8 BNR announcements.
Okay.
I do not see any reason for them to have to move it to an emergency ban. I could definitely see after a few weeks of the format, they use that mid-release ban, and we're like, hey, this is causing very unfair games. It is terrible for coverage. It's just creating a very unfun meta, and there's not enough answers for it. Then they go ahead. But Cindervine seems like a really good counter to that card.
Absolutely. The Cindervine seems like a very, very powerful card. It's just, I was very impressed by it. I was very impressed with it. Even if it only triggered once against Josh, but he had to use a whole card on it.
Yeah, so it was kind of weird seeing that as a rare, but now that we got to see it in action and how powerful it can be, especially when the opponent doesn't remove it. Or if the opponent tries to remove it and you get to naturalize in response.
I also just see this card being modern playable in sideboards of, like, say, even, like, if there's a blue-red Phoenix deck that might want to, like, splash like a Breeding Pool, instead of doing, like, Ancient Grudge, you can play that. Or there's a couple decks that I think could play it that should.
Yeah. I've had a few conversations about it. It definitely depends on the meta in Modern, because there are definitely instances where you prefer Destructive Revelry, that you just need something off the board immediately, and you want that quick damage go versus the extra mana that Cinder Vines does cost. Now, something I just thought of, it's very good against Blood Moon decks because you can just go ahead, put it onto the battlefield. You don't have to ever hold up mana. When you untap, go ahead, pop it, get rid of the Blood Moon when it matters. Like, you don't even have to hold up that 1 mana because you can just use mana of any type.
Just whenever you want to.
Yeah. So if we have, if we still have KCI running about, that trigger really matters. They still have Engineer Explosives, but as a way to just deal that extra damage to them does matter. I think it's reasonable against Storm decks in Modern. They have ways to win before it would kill them.
It's no Eidolon, but it's still a card you would side in.
But if you need the Naturalize effect anyways, if you're like a Jund deck or something, it has multiple uses. It's kind of like Damping Sphere, where you have some matchups where you need to turn off Tron or bounce lands, and then you have some matchups where you just need to slow your opponent down enough. So it definitely has its uses. I think it's just meta dependent and maybe deck dependent as to whether that's the better choice over Revelry.
Yep, I completely agree with you there. But so that is our night. Thank you very much for everyone that came out to join us tonight. I believe we're all very excited for Ravnica Allegiance to standard format. It seems sweet. I can't wait to
Minus
start playing
Nexus.
I can't wait to start playing it on Arena, regardless.
Yep.
It will be a very good time. So for any of you guys that are tuning in late, we are playing a replay of this directly after the stream. So if you want to watch any of these first rounds, you can go ahead and do that. Other than that, we will be back next week at 7:30 with an assorted format of Magic the Gathering.
Yeah. We will either be playing Standard next week or the following week. Sometimes we decide we want to wait until we see some results. But now that we're getting it earlier on Arena, maybe next week's a good time.
Yeah, potentially.
So,
We'll see what goes on.
Yep.
But again, thank you everyone for joining us, and good night from the basement.
Later.